Good morning, everybody. Mayor, council, stakeholders who are on the screen. I just want to say good morning to you all. Saturday, July 25th.
It's just the volume from the other room.
We're going to kick off our meeting, our city council leadership retreat. Our second day, full day, will be going from 9 to 5. I'll just do a little housekeeping. The agenda's been posted. The information of what we're going to discuss, the presentations that we'll receive from our attorney, engineer, and the conversations we'll have with city council and leadership in reference to adopting some strategic goals and priorities for this year. You all have the Wi-Fi code. Restrooms are to the left. The last room is where we have drinks, coffee, snacks, and where we'll have our lunch. Lunch will come, and then we'll break for lunch, and then call the meeting workshop back together. First, I'd like to say it is an honor to be before you all, engaging in this conversation. I asked the mayor to say a prayer to kick us off again, because it's nothing like starting off a meeting with a word.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather and service for our community, for this council retreat. Help us listen with respect and lead with integrity and work together in unity and compassion. May all that we do today bring honor to you and benefit those we are called to serve. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mayor. As we kind of have arrived and gotten ready, we had an opportunity on here for citizens to participate. We do have a citizen here, and nobody have signed up to participate as far as citizens' comments. We'll move forward to the arrival or welcome and overview. I'll just say again, I enjoyed last night's opportunity for us to engage on team building and collaborative exercises, and seeing our team grow as our senior leadership worked with mayor and city council to try to bridge that gap. The retreat objectives is to, again, come away with some strategic goals, some priorities for this 26-27 year, kind of share about major projects, major things that we want to accomplish together as staff. Yesterday we talked about shared governance, and we'll talk a little bit about that today. The attorney will come in and also give an hour presentation for council members to cheer you up in management and governance and the understanding of the rules and how they apply. Because you all have a difficult job every day. And so we want to make sure that you're providing the tools to be able to do that job. Again, I want to introduce to you all, we have with us today our city secretary, Ms. Christine Wilson. We have our police chief, Ms. Chief Cardona. We have Ms. Huh?
It's okay. Okay.
We have Ms. Kathy Gomez, our director for the senior center. We have with us Captain Speed, John Speed for the fire department. We have with us Captain Blake Farrell from the fire department as well. And that's the staff who are representing. And my name is Dr. Brian Rowland. We also have with us Mayor Janisha Grider, who will be giving opening remarks. We also have Council Member Susan Street. We have Council Member Joe Molina, and we have Council Member John McCormick. And so that just is going to allow us to be able to, again, work through a great day that the Lord has made. Mayor, if you could kind of give an introduction and remarks for today.
Okay, so everyone, we are going to have a fun time, but also educational, informative council retreat. Last night, for those who attended, we had, there were some icebreakers, but also some information, and he'll go into it, I'm pretty sure, about the hope for Kirby that the leadership and the council came up with. This is nothing new. Retreats, they happen in other cities. School boards do retreats. As we know, organizations of from federal, state, local, everybody does retreats. So this is nothing new. I'm so happy that this is our second or third, I don't remember, council retreats. Our third, okay. This is our third council retreat. And so today it's gonna be a long day, but it's gonna be a productive day. Dr. Rowland and the staff has prepared the agenda for everyone, and there's a lot to go over, but it's much needed for our community because we want to make sure that everyone is informed and knows the proper information so they can spread the appropriate information. So let's have a good day.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll kind of want to recap from yesterday, and then I have a reflection question, kind of like what we did yesterday. So I'm going to ask Chief Cardona to go over the presentation that Dr. Melissa went over and kind of just summarize this. You can come up, and then Ms. Christine, you'll go over our 7 strategic goals that we identified to kind of just bring a recap from yesterday.
Okay, so I don't remember the questions. I know we were asked yesterday what our hope for the community is, and for ourselves are, and for the city. And as all that was left was council and staff, we decided that our hope for our community is the potential for economic change with creative, innovative, intentional mindsets to thrive and meet max potential, accelerate, and a shared excellence, movement of excellence, and cohesive community, united community, learn to love differences and opinions, unified resources for our community, and the fire department. They made sure that they wanted a new fire truck, so they made that very clear. And he said something that was really awesome. To be a milestone and not a stepping stone in someone's career. Overall, what we went over and what this told us are things that we're looking, I guess we have hope to have within our community and within our internally and externally. But it had something with being unified. All of us came down to the same conclusion. So that was what we pretty much came up with on that little task.
Okay, we talked about the 7 strategic goals from the retreat. The first one is enhancing public safety and emergency readiness, advancing infrastructure and beautification projects, strengthening community engagement and transparency, modernizing city services and embracing technology, supporting economic development and local business growth, improving housing and code compliance, and investing in organizational culture and staff development.
Thank you all for bringing that recap. What we were trying to do was set the stage. We had a facilitator come in yesterday and work with our team for about an hour, going over hope is what she called it. One Kirby, and then we had an opportunity to kind of strengthen what strategic goals or priorities we wanted to set for the 2026-2027 year. These may look familiar. These are similar to the goals of last year. One of the things on why the strategic goals we would say would be the same is because it takes more than 1 year to accomplish some of these heavy lift goals. But if you look at the 7 goals that we want to reaffirm and or add or change based on what you all see in priorities, it allows staff to be able to work towards accomplishing that mission. And so when you go through those 7 items, you'll see that the city of Kirby made giant steps in every 7 categories. And so thank you for sharing in our reflection. Mayor, since you were there as a elected official, you and Mayor Pro Tem Apodaca, could you share reflections from last night for us?
Reflections? Like a review,
Yeah.
basically. So last night we went over, I found it really interesting, the facilitator. I really enjoyed that part of it. Listening to the leadership thoughts and the 2 council members' thoughts, like what the outlook for the shape of Kirby and for our citizens. And as Chief Cardona was stating earlier, the main theme that we just kept hearing over and over again was about unity, making our community more unified. And also, I like about when we do this council retreat because we all see each other, some of us every day, some of us, maybe once a week or every other week, but we actually got to really talk with each other on a different level. I know myself was speaking with Captain Moxie, and I was just very interested about how he said how he became to want to even be in the fire department, to be a firefighter, that's like a big deal. And I would have never heard of that story before, so I just think it's very interesting that everybody has their own stories of why they want to serve Kirby. It doesn't matter if you're actually employed or on council, because we all still technically, this is our job. So.
Thank you, Mayor, for sharing. Yesterday's breakdown, overview from the consultant, they talked about one team, one Kirby. What we call the new cheese ahead, embracing change and opportunity together. New cheese ahead is a play off of a book, Who Moved My Cheese. I shared that staff had read this book. Staff did a wonderful job doing presentations, and from that, something that just dropped out the sky in our lap was an opportunity where we're going to be doing a community read book club type of thing, where we want to give out 100 Who Moved My Cheese books and engage with residents through the book and have a 2-hour discussion on why organizational change, why community change is important, and how we can do that together. I think that would be a phenomenal opportunity. This hasn't been done anywhere, and why not start it here in Kirby? I think this book is a foundational thing that will help us all move together. And so then we'll understand the 4 characters in the book, and then community will get to ask themselves, which character are you? Right? And so then we'll be able to self-regulate in reference to how we transition and move forward. There is also, she talked about deep change. Great Teams Start Within by Dr. Quinn was another book she referenced. Then she had a team building exercise talking about why we serve. And so I'm going to take this moment to ask you all to do a brief exercise for me. I'm going to give you a sticky note, and then the question is for you to write down why we serve. So the question is why we serve. We can all take a moment to write down briefly why we serve. Because to serve, you have to have a why. You gotta have a why. Why do we serve? Why we serve. We should get some good answers too. Why did Chief Cordell become a police officer? Why does Captain Speed become a firefighter? Why did our newest council member, Councilmember McCormick, choose to serve? Are we ready? Oh no, it's a little tight. So we'll just have everybody stand up where they're at. Or y'all want to come to the front?
These tables are gonna get knocked
All right. So we'll just stay there. Okay, so we don't need nobody calling in. We don't need nobody calling anybody's name. So okay, yes, we'll just stay where we at. We'll sit down. Let's start with Captain Speed.
So why I serve? It's for the betterment of the community, for the growth of our staff. It's for the legacy that we leave behind, and then for more of a personal reason to give hope for my children.
Awesome.
Thank you, sir.
What he said.
Council member.
Oh, me, sorry. I chose to serve because I would like to do my part in order to move the city forward. We hear a lot of people saying they want to move the city forward, but I decided to run to see what I could do to aid in the process of moving the city forward. And also, my second reason is being a resident in the community for the years that I've been, I saw a lot of division. So I decided to run and see how I could do my part to bridge the gap and, bring people together, because until we come together, then we're gonna keep opposing one another and not moving forward. So we need to kind of bring the city together so we can move forward together.
Thank you. Councilmember Molina.
Kind of the same thing as McCormick has said, but what I put down is to make a change in our community, for my family, for everybody around me. Now that I've lived there for many years, over 40 years now, my kids were all raised there, and my two daughters live in Kirby also in our community. So I have grandkids that will grow up there as but I wanted to see a community that can work together. You know, when I get things, you know, from a church, you know, we have, you know, bake sales and stuff. I buy those and I give them out. I don't try to sell it to like, well, how much is that? I said, don't worry about it. I took care of it. And I don't, you know, I do it because I've been blessed to grow up in Kirby and see people come and help me when I need it. So I want to spread that as something, you know, bring us all together.
Thank you, Councilman. Right.
Oh, okay, yes. So why do I serve? Initially to be the voice for like the voiceless, for those people who are, who were at the time, they were feeling they were not being heard or they were afraid to speak. And when I say that, I mean like, you know, there's three, you know, the three things when you think about, you know, like you can, like insult, like, you know, interrogate, threaten, and I just want to make sure that, you know, from somebody who is not, as you know, I'm not very timid, I would just say that. I can be very vocal, and just to continue that for the community. And then also to bring resources to the community. That was actually one thing, the first event that I actually did for the city of Kirby as the mayor. I spoke at a breakfast with quite a number of people in the room, and I talked about the community, about, hey, how, like, make sure that Kirby is here. There's so many resources that's out there, but they're not coming to our city. And we are so close, and we are a part of, you know, Bear County, and why we're not getting those resources, or why other organizations aren't coming in. It's almost like we were kind of forgotten. And we would hear people come and give speeches and say, oh, you know, you feel forgotten. Well, we are. And why is that? So just to bring resources in the community, and then also too, just to protect the community, protect the families, women and children and elderly from, you know, from not just sexual predators, but just predators, period, that we have in our community.
Chief Cardona.
Sir. So, you asked me a particular question, which is why I became a police officer. So I went back to 2009 when I decided to go to the police academy. I wanted, and things have changed, but I wanted to be the person that I was never provided. So that means being there for people. And I knew that this job, there was two options, either go to the military or I would go into police. And when I chose, and the military was a no-no for my family, because at that time it was 9/11, so they kind of had an instinct that probably wasn't the greatest decision at the time. So I went into law enforcement, understanding that I was going to be a therapist, a counselor, a peacekeeper, and that I was going to pave a way for people, children, kids, teens, adults that didn't have the resources to talk to anyone, or didn't feel comfortable talking to anyone. So within my first year, I went through the negotiator, hostage negotiator course, and I geared my entire career on mental health, and got involved with the SWAT team, got involved being a negotiator, done it for the city of Kirby, and that is my commitment even to this day. So that's why I became an officer.
Thank you for sharing. Ms. Gomez.
I'm gonna take this back to childhood. No. Growing up, I one of my favorite things that I came across and I saw was the concept of the nuclear family, 1950s. I don't want everything about 1950s. I like the aspect of community from that era. And that aspect of that community was, you know, neighbors knew their neighbors. Neighbors talked to their neighbors. They had block parties, you know, they had celebrations together. And so when I moved to Kirby, that was a big hope of mine. It's like, you know, I want that. I want to create that here. And just small vision wise was just my street, you know, and then now joining the Kirby on the administration side, on the city municipal side, I see that my vision has changed because I want that for the entire community. So what I want is, I want to see the city of Kirby thrive, you know, in so many aspects, you know, not just economic stability, but in the aspect of we're put on the map for positive things as opposed to all the negative. What I find mind-boggling about it is, you know, we're highlighted for all the negative things. It's the same things going on all across America, you know. And I get the concerns and what have you, but I would really love to see us at a place where, you know, yeah, we won't be perfect, but people start realizing, hey, it's not all bad, Kirby.
That's my street.
Well, I started out being on council because so many people were afraid to speak. But then I realized that I really came to save the residents from evil. And I'll keep doing that.
I want to share why.
Can I talk about before you say something? This is good.
Uh-huh.
And Miss Kathy said something that I didn't add because I kind of keep. When I tell people I live in Kirby, they're like, "Oh, you live in Kirby?" You know, I could live in Stone, know all these different places and stuff like that. But at this point, because when I bought my house, I bought it as an investment property just until I figure out where I wanted to live. And I chose to stay in Kirby because of that concept. So I said, you know what, I want to roll up my sleeves and I want to do my part to change that stigma and put Kirby on the map and not let it be the place that people drive by. Because my friends that live in Stone Road and stuff like that say, oh, you live in Stone. I'm like, I don't care, I live in Kirby. And so I wanted to point that out, that I share that sense of community. I want to bring us together so when people look at us, they're not shunning us, you know, like, why do you live there and not here? So I live here in Kirby because I chose to stay and I want to do my part to erase that stigma.
Thank you.
I want,
No,
when she
no,
said
you're
that,
Thank you. Now, this is important. How we ground ourselves. How do we get to see the person next to us that we have to work with, build a relationship with? You only do that by humanizing that person, by understanding their why. The question is, why do we serve? For me, why do I serve? I wanted to be a representative of my community. My father was in the military for 38 years. We served his country from Panama. My mom was from Belize. And so many people see me as African American, but I'm really Hispanic, like Afro-Latino. And so growing up in Brooklyn, New York. And so from that, the opportunities to serve young people in the community started off by being a scoutmaster in the Boy Scouts. And having raised up 8 Eagle Scouts and having the honor to receive one of the highest awards in scouting, which is called the Silver Beaver. And when you Google it, you'll understand what it takes to be bestowed this honor from Boy Scouts of America. And so that continuous service, working with young people, working with the community, those things got me involved, being a volunteer firefighter for over 10 years, service to community. And that's what allowed me to then transition from my other experiences, serving on city council for 12 years, being the mayor for 2 years, and then coming full circle after getting an MBA and a PhD, allowing me to be a city manager. And so service always been a true commitment to why I do the things that I do, and hopefully leading this community, those things shine out or representative of you, of why we serve. So you all understand that I'm about service, and I am committed to Kirby. I said I'm all in, so everybody understands my why. As we transition to finalize, we save this moving around, right? And then enough space. But we'll kind of go into on your thing, in your yellow binder is the local elected official leadership model. I just put that in there. Again, a model I like to use so people really understand that this is based in a theory of shared governance and practice, and not just people shooting from the hip. And so that's the difference between
Whereabouts?
should be
Page in the back,
of your
on the left side.
and so it says looks like this, and has a local elected leadership model, and it talks about visioning principles, and operating guidelines. You need all three of those things to set priorities for this body. And so those are some of the things that guide us to be able to go back to why we're here, setting our strategic priorities for the year FY 26-27. How do we all agree these are our priorities? Because everybody had a different why we serve. Now, how do you get everybody's why we serve moving in the same direction? It's hard. You gotta have understanding. You gotta have compassion. You gotta be resilient, because it's not gonna be easy. What's the vision? So that's what we're doing today, visioning. What's the destination we're trying to go? Forward, Kirby forward. What are the strategic targets we want to set? And what are the long-term priorities that council wants to set? Then you have your visioning principles as far as policies. City council sets policies. Staff executes on those policies. There's a symbiotic relationship in reference to how we move. We move in tandem, in unison, because we have what's called shared governance. And then we have operating guidelines. Those are the guidelines, or the rails of values on how it's going to guide our relationship, our working relationship. So as I talked about last night, the purpose was to enable Kirby City Council members to work together to identify a collective vision for the city, short-term priorities to achieve the vision, along with roles and operating guidelines that will enhance effectiveness amongst council members, staff, mayor, and city manager. That's what this model does. Again, there's about 8 goals under this model to increase the understanding and appreciation of fellow council members in order to enhance the ability of council to provide collective leadership in the city. Review the models that can assist council in providing effective governance and maximizing staff effort to achieve council's policy direction. Policy direction. Gain an understanding of each individual council member's perspective on important leadership issues, assets and needs, and desired change initiatives for the community. Develop a collective council vision with desired future states that will provide clearer long-term policy direction. So like going through Thursday's meeting, on the city council was a zoning diagnostic. What that zoning diagnostic was an overview. We about 10 months ago, asked the firm to go through our zoning ordinances and give us an update or synopsis on where we're at and what we need to change. That was finalized, presented to public planning and zoning. You're talking about community engagement. Then that also was presented to city council, where city council accepted the report, and now is going to be providing direction on where we need to move. So again, in that policy report, there was guidelines on what is out-of-state compliance and what is just some zoning things that may be needed to be changed just for your community's sake, right? How it's grown. Those those are the important things, because again, who is responsible for policy development?
Council.
Council. So when staff provides you some information and said, here's the five out of the 10 things that we're out of compliance with the state, and you all decide not to move forward on it, who is responsible?
Council.
Staff cannot make the decision to move forward on these things until council has voted and gives us direction. So whether it be planning and zoning, whether it be all the boards and commissions we have, if there are directives that say we're out of compliance, we have a charter commission going on right now. Things that are out of compliance with the state. Our goal is to provide the information and ask for council to make a decision. Identify and agree on short-term priorities that will achieve the vision and desired future state. Kind of like the conversation around Ackerman Road. We know what the problem is. We're now bringing a solution, and that we're trying to comprise a short-term plan and a long-term plan to solve that, right? And so that's how you set your priorities. Clarifying the roles and developing operating guidelines. That is, who's going to do what. Council has a role, policy, which is policy development in the governance, and the staff has a role in management and operation. Everybody has a lane, and everybody should stay in their lane. When we get out of each other's lane, that's where organizations have issues. Management execute. City council sets the priorities and direction. Again, identifying specific actions to communicate council vision and priorities, which is activities like this, city council leadership retreats, and then identifying next steps for addressing council leadership work for staff. That is what the local elected official model is. Yes.
I have a question. When you say we need to stay in our lane, what is council supposed to do when the operations is not following those rules in the charter or the ordinances?
It depends. I mean, part of what part of what shared governance is having respect for each other. And with respect for each other, people are able to talk and communicate, hey, I've noticed this, or this is an issue. Now, part of how organizations, our organization, or all 1,584 cities that exist in the state, who are small cities that belong to TML. You said 1,000?
It's like a lot of cities.
Well, it's like 1,580 or something like that belong to the organization. And so, keeping shared governance goes in all the organizations. So it depends, because we have perspective. Just like we all shared why we serve, it was all different. And so I can't come at you away because I don't like the way you said why you serve or anyone else. And so part of it is just building open lines of communication, building trust, to where at least if I don't agree with you, I respect the person. If we keep respect there, I think you move closer to the policy. I think, again.
I'm confused because I'm asking if they're not following policy in their lane.
Yes.
What is council supposed to do?
I don't know. What if council's not following policy? What is the staff supposed to do?
It's not your job. We make the policy.
No.
Right?
We
make the
yes,
policy.
You make the policy.
Okay,
And then
and
the
who
state-
oversees you?
The city manager. The city manager is overseen by city council, which is the body, not
Right.
a person.
I understand that.
So no, let me share, because it's not just for you; it's for everybody.
Oh.
I just want us to be clear. One of the issues is that when we talk about understanding each other, there are 6 council members and 1 mayor.
Actually,
That is the body.
council is the mayor included. The mayor only has this much more authority
Yes.
than we do, and that's
Yeah.
only to run the meeting,
Yeah.
put things on the agenda, and sign checks.
Yes. So the
That's
7.
it.
So the 7 members the 7 members, 6 council members and the mayor, make up city council. And I think what people sometimes forget, a council member is not the majority,
No, it is not.
and they have no power
That's right.
without the body.
That's right.
And so one person who communicates something, unless that person understands their influence, to be able to influence the body, which means the majority, to move in a direction, it is just one person's feelings. Do we understand how that works?
What if they
And
have
so-
documentation?
So I'm just keeping it level.
I'm keeping it level too. What if they have documentation?
I don't know. So
Yeah, you
we'll
do.
continue to move. But I just want to be clear. Council's a body. Council operates as a body. One person, 2 people is not city council. They're city council members. The charter, the local government code clearly identifies a process on how we handle these things. And so, the response for one individual person may be different than if the body adopts a directive or tells a staff member to do something. Does that make sense?
So if the majority of that group, council, decides to ignore those things, then it's on them,
Yep.
correct? For
No.
for things not happening.
It's on the body.
It's on the body, but it's
Yeah.
on the majority who decides not to vote to direct another issue.
It's on the body. So that's not for staff to deal with. That's political. And staff is not into politics, which is what this community seems to want to bring
Are you
staff
kidding
in.
me?
So I'm just sharing the.
You're hilarious. This is a joke day today, is that it?
So as we get
I
ready.
just want to make sure, so I just want to say something. So we just want to make sure, and for everybody to understand, that we are here, but the quorum rules do still apply. We are going to go through, we have guests, as we normally have guests, as we're all normally, we have guests, and we're going to have guests throughout the day. So we're going to be respectful, and we're going to let the staff continue with the process. Dr. Rhodes?
Thank you, Mayor. Again, thank you all for engaging. I think it's important not that everyone get to share or ask their questions, because it is important for people to feel heard. And so as we transition into our next presentation, that will be by our tax delinquent collection attorneys, line barter. we have guests in the room, and so let's so we can transition correctly. Do we need 2 minutes, or we want to just go into it? Because they're here, we're ready. Everybody got the water. We ready? Let's roll. Come on up.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you all so much for inviting us again to be with you all during your leadership retreat. As always, we just feel like it is an honor to be with you and to get to spend this time together with you, to share with you a little bit about what it is that we do for the city, so that we make sure that we are not just making sure that our relationship is a great one, but that you understand what it is that we are, the service that we're providing for you. So I am here to represent our delinquent tax service that we, delinquent tax collection service that we provide for the city. And then my colleague Madeline Mendieta is also here as well to talk about the court fees and fines service that we also provide for the city. So what you have in front of you, and you all mostly have seen this before, we prepare an annual report for our delinquent tax collections for the city. This is not quite the entire year represented for you, but we wanted to give you our most recent collection report summary. So you have a report that goes through our last full month, which was June, in front of you. So just kind of going through this report, what we do our program at Linebarger is it's very logical. So what happens every single year, taxes become delinquent, as we know, on February 1st. From February 1st until June 30th, those delinquent taxes are collected by the Bexar County Tax Office. And then on July 1st, anything that hasn't been collected by the Bexar County Tax Office is turned over to our law firm for collection. So the way that works is, it helps to kind of ramp up the pressure on people who have not paid their taxes, but referring those taxes to us for collection so that we can give our best effort and focus on making sure that our clients, our taxing entities, receive the funds that are owed to them. So, what you have in front of you is a report not just of everything through June, but it goes back all the way until 2010. So you have a good representation of the work that we've been doing for the firm since we've had this relationship with the city. All right. Any questions about anything that I've said so far? Okay, so we're currently in the month of July. We just went through the turnover of the 2025 tax year. Those taxes are turned over to us. We begin making calls on all of those accounts right away. So we send out a mass mailing to all of the taxpayers, delinquent taxpayers. We start receiving and making phone calls to try to get those amounts collected. There's a very big amount that usually comes in the month of July. We let folks know that if you don't pay, we're going to have to file a lawsuit to try to bring up those collections for our clients. So just kind of going through this report, I'm going to grab my own copy of the report. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. So, if you look at the first kind of graphic that you have in front of you, you see that typically what this shows you is what tax year we have, followed by when the collection was, the previous year was turned over to us for collection, how much was collected of the base levy prior to the taxes being turned over to us. So for example, in 2021, for example, 97.6% of your taxpayers paid their taxes on time before they were turned over to us.
What was the percentage, I'm sorry?
So this is 2021, I'm just giving you an example here. So for the 2021 tax year, oh yeah, you have it. So the 2021 tax year, this is page 5 that we're looking at. Before the balance was turned over to us, 97.6% of your taxpayers paid their taxes. So this is a very small percentage that we're talking about that's actually turned over to us for collection, because the vast majority of taxpayers pay their taxes timely. So for the 2024 tax year, the balance that was paid prior to being turned over to us was 95%. Okay, and then we show you a year later, as of June 30th, 2026, Linebarger was able to get that balance, that number of taxpayers who had paid their taxes from 95% and brought it up to 98.3%. And we'll keep working that roll and all of that delinquent tax balance and portfolio until this number comes to 100%. Many times in some of your reports, you'll see this number over here at 100% because we continue to work that collection of those delinquent taxes. We don't just stop once the tax year is done. Okay, the next page gives you a status of your portfolio. This is a really informative kind of picture of your delinquent tax portfolio, because you want to know why this is important. Is we don't have the ability to just go out and work every single delinquent account that's turned over to us. We have deferrals, we have veterans exemptions, we have bankruptcies. All of those things are captured here. So for all of the accounts that we have that we're working for the city of Kirby, there are 239 accounts representing $232,000. But they're broken down by where are those accounts. So this tells you that you have 54% of your delinquent tax portfolio is not collectible right now because they have a tax deferral on that account. That is fantastic, right? That's fine for those people. They are 100% welcome to take advantage of the provisions that our legislature has passed for them. But you all should keep that in mind as the council members who are responsible for your city, that a very large percentage of your portfolio will be coming to you at a later date. It's not collectible right now, okay? Something else, I heard you all talking about your zoning provisions. What we provided to you as well is a visual summary of your delinquent tax portfolio broken down by property type. So you can just look at this and kind of get the visual of where it is. So here, the vast majority of your portfolio is actually, delinquent tax portfolio is actually real property, all right? And then you have another section that is mobile homes. Those are very difficult to collect, I will just let you know. And then you have another portion of your delinquent tax portfolio that's business personal property. So this just kind of gives you a visual of what those property types look like here in the city of Kirby.
Excuse me, so
Yes,
the real
please.
property is residential homes then?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So it's just real property, land. It could be, you know, it's a car dealership. It's not necessarily the car deal, so that account would be broken down in two different ways. The land and the building that car dealership occupies, that is a real property account. There's also the business. You also pay taxes on business personal property, and that is a separate account.
That's why you say business personal.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay? Okay. And then the next bracket that you have is just an analysis of the delinquent tax roll. And this gives you a visual of this other chart that we just talked about. Sometimes for visual learners, it's nice to just be able to kind of see it, right? So this is just a visual pie chart of that graphic that we went through a minute ago. But here again, you can take a look and see a large percentage of this is your delinquent tax portfolio, is and they currently are enjoying an over 65 deferral. Does it mean those taxes aren't going to be owed at some point? It means that right now you are not able to make use of that income for your city, revenue for your city.
So they can request a deferral, through like resources? Or is it like an attorney thing where they ask for a deferral?
It's much simpler than that. It's an application that you fill out with the appraisal district. It's like, a one or maybe a little one-page form that you submit to.
Is it like an exemption?
It's an exemption. That's
So
all it is.
it could be the veterans exemption or disability, homestead, that's where that's coming from.
Correct. But for the over 65, there's an over 65 exemption.
Okay.
And then you can take the next step of applying for an over 65 deferral. That defers the collection of your property taxes until you no longer occupy that home as your residence.
So that keeps them in a stable place of not being impacted. Now, does their taxes go up, down still, or is it something that stays the same because of that deferral?
They should stay the same once you've gone ahead and applied, but they can go up because your value is going up, right? So if your value is going up, I will ask you. So your value is going up, but what that protection is providing by having the deferral on there, it's saying that you don't have to pay the taxes if you don't choose to pay the taxes.
So it doesn't penalize you?
Correct. You're still being charged interest. You are not being charged a penalty for not paying your taxes.
So they still can't be held, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, that's actually very interesting.
Yeah.
But they can't be held responsible for not paying for it. It's just put into a delinquency, but not really something we can do about it.
It's not, so there is some discussion, right? Is it delinquent or not delinquent? Most people would say it's not delinquent. You're not being charged a penalty for not paying your property taxes if you have an over 65 deferral.
Right.
Now, once that deferral comes off of that property, you no longer live there in that building in that property as your residence, then you have a certain amount of time to pay all of those taxes that you haven't been paying during the deferral. I think it's 180 days. And then if you don't pay within that time, then the penalty will come onto the account.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, so what you see, what a lot of over 65 taxpayers will do is they'll go ahead and apply for the exemption and the deferral, but they'll keep paying towards their taxes.
Now, if they pass away or they are deceased, is that something that continues on to family?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Exactly. So that's why you get that 180 days. So once and that's why I say no longer occupies that property as their residence. They can pass away, they can move somewhere else, whatever the case may be. Usually it's because they pass away. So if that person passes away, then their family members get, what is that, 6 months? 6 months to pay all of those taxes, or the penalty is gonna come onto the account and it is going to be
On
considered
top of what they
delinquent.
owe.
Correct, right,
So it's really, wow, it's just stalling them.
correct, it's deferring the taxes.
That's
If you
really,
think about it, it's deferring them.
it
They're not
almost sounds
going
more
away.
harmful to do in the long run.
Not necessarily, I mean, it depends, you don't want somebody saying, okay, I live in this house, I've lived in it for 20 years, I just cannot pay my taxes, plus my groceries, plus my medication, plus my whatever.
No, I understand,
Right,
yes.
so instead of you having to make that decision to pay, $8,000 in property taxes in a year versus paying for your groceries or whatever, pay for your groceries, your medication, whatever else, and then you can figure out what's going to happen with those taxes. What a lot of family members will do is go ahead and sell that property during those 6 months and just use the proceeds of the sale to pay those back taxes.
Either way, there's some damaging effect, whether it's the individual who's leaving, whether they pass away, or the family member that's taking on the property. Either way, it's like I'm borrowing. It's what it sounds like.
You can think of it
Yeah,
that way.
it's
I mean,
not-
I don't think it's damaging. I think it's actually a good public policy. However, it's not a bad idea to keep paying towards those taxes. But if you have a problem where things are tight, put it off. It's okay.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, yes.
Has Kirby changed to where they have a over 65 exemption now?
That wouldn't come from the city of Kirby. That is a state law. That's in the.
Okay, because I know Bear County has one, but I don't get an exemption on my Kirby taxes.
You should.
I
You
only
should-
get
you should be
a
eligible for
homestead.
it.
I only get a homestead exemption, that's what it says on the tax bill.
Talk to the appraisal district.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I'm getting the over 65 on everything else.
Mm-hmm. You should be getting it on your Kirby then too. Maybe you need to talk to the appraisal district to see
Okay.
why that is not on there.
All right.
Other questions I didn't?
On the pie, now it says it's 41 deferrals that we have in the city. Is that what that means?
That's 41 delinquent accounts that have an over 65 deferral on them.
So that's
Or
okay.
unpaid.
But not the total amount of deferrals that we have in the city. It's just the amount that are delinquent.
Correct.
Got it.
This is an analysis of your delinquent tax roll only. Anything else that's not delinquent, we will not see as my marker.
And the ones that are in litigation, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So we, our largest enforcement mechanism as a law firm is to file a lawsuit. So we don't want to do that. That's not our first choice. That's why I kind of talked a little bit about what our process is. So the turnover happens July 1st. We send out a mailing, we make phone calls. That's what we're trying to do first, is get those collected with a phone call, with a letter. And we do get a lot of them collected that way. We will then send another letter if the account remains unpaid around August or so. And then if it still remains unpaid by about September, October, we start filing lawsuits. So we will file a lawsuit to try to get those collected. We don't file on smaller numbers of accounts. So for example, you see the subject to litigation is actually that's a good chunk of your roll as well. This represents 44 accounts for your city. But for the average amount of those accounts, the balance owed is $419. We're not gonna file a lawsuit for $419. But if that balance is something like $1,000, $1,500, that's when we start to file a suit. Which is still fairly low, right? Because then you're talking about somebody having to not just pay their delinquent taxes, they have to also pay the court costs that go along with the cost of the suit, the citation, the title report, all of that, the district court's filing fees. They'll have to pay that as well. So it's in everybody's best interest to go ahead and pay their taxes, but we will file a lawsuit. Yes?
I'm sorry. I have a follow-up on the over 65 question. Who is responsible, the person that have the application out for over 65 resident, let's just say the person passed away, who's responsible for informing, I guess, the city or the county that that primary person in the application is no longer with us?
It's a great question. There isn't necessarily a person that's responsible. I guess you could say the taxpayer is responsible. That probably never happens. The party that's responsible for following up with that is the appraisal district. That's their job to do that.
We have run into, on the law enforcement side, we have run into properties that have been absolutely mistreated, that are on, you can see on the BCAD, American County Appraisal District, that they have missed multiple years and they are delinquent on their taxes, but also the people that live there currently are taking advantage of veteran services or exemptions from people have passed away. So we have also reported that to the Bear County Appraisal to make sure that those exemptions are applied appropriately.
100% that happens all day, every day. You know, because people will move into a property and continue to take advantage of the exemption, or people don't know about it, or whatever. What we always say is, please let us know, let your city manager know, you can contact us as well. We'd be happy to kind of do that research, make sure that we have we can use our stick tracing and our research to kind of say, okay, is this person actually passed away? Who's actually living in that property? And we will also have connections at the appraisal district so that we can follow up with them to make sure that the exemption information on that account is accurate.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, 'cause the ones that we're dealing, obviously, code enforcement's really big, especially for this year. And the ones that are abandoned, the ones that have holes in the side of the house, we're finding most of them are unfit for human occupancy, but also their taxes are in a dump. Is there any way that we can get a list?
Yes. Okay, so this is actually, I'm so glad you brought that up. That's another service that we can provide, and we do it at no cost to the city. So there is a provision in the state law that says that if there is a tax suit that is pending against a property, you can actually collect like mowing liens, and that's leave people out liens, and all any sort of code compliance like that, liens that have been filed against the property, we can collect those in a tax account, a tax lawsuit as well. And we do that for a number of our cities, the biggest one being the city of San Antonio. So we can include those in our lawsuit, and we actually encourage you to do that, because if you have filed a lien, a code compliance lien, and it's not in our suit, or we notify the city that we're proceeding on our taxes, that code compliance lien is going to be extinguished, right, if we go through with our tax suits, because the tax lien is a superior lien. So it's in the best interest of the city to follow up on.
Is this the same as like a forbearance?
No.
No, so
No.
what I'm running into, so I will be getting with you within a property end.
Sure.
It's a particular property that, I'm being informed there are restrictions, but then the restrictions are the fact that there is certain exemptions.
Okay.
And those exemptions, I'm having trouble, removing, because only certain people can, even though there is no one taking ownership of the property, or they are deceased, or
It's
whatever.
vacant, or
It's gone.
it's
Yeah.
okay. Well, okay. So please let us know.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
can 100% help with that. We do we deal with that kind of issue all the time. So yeah, we can help you with that.
Yeah, that's great.
So, right now, we've been, for the last 8 months, heavily getting involved with code. For the last 30 days, we are transitioning to moving through our building standards. Last two council meetings ago, in the month of June, there was the body adopted did an RFP for lawn mowing services to be able to move through the process in which you've identified. And so I think what we want to do is connect with myself and Chief Cardona, because we are going to go at, the residents have spoken in reference to cleaning up the community.
Sure.
So we want to move forward with that and making sure we're documenting the correct process, which enjoins us with you all.
Yes, absolutely. And as long as those liens are being reported, that's when we can start to enforce them. Yeah, and get those collected. You want to come with me in the room? Does that,
Whatever works for everybody.
okay. And then just move my stuff out of the way, so I'll just walk out one more time. Okay, so moving forward, and I know I prepared this PowerPoint. It really is just a summary of this report. So anyway, so what else we do is we do the mailings, and this report kind of gives you an idea of what those mailings are when we do them, how many letters that we're sending out to accounts. We also, of course, have our downtown law office, and so we have taxpayers that are welcome to come into our office if they need help with something, if they need to if they need to make a payment, if they need to, whatever is needed, they can come into our office and they will be helped by a litigation assistant in person in our office. All right, talking about the litigation activity and going back to the previous question, before we file a lawsuit, we always run a title report to make sure that we have the proper owner for that account, whether it's a business personal property account, whether it's a real property account, whatever it is, to make sure that we're including the proper parties. So that is a cost that is incurred by the taxpayer. And then we also do bankruptcy collections as well. And so we have an entire bankruptcy department in our law firm. The head of that department is actually in our San Antonio office. So that's kind of the benefit that our Bexar County area clients get to enjoy. And then on page 15, you actually see the collection results. So this tells you, here's the breakdown again. So we saw some of this information prior. So you have the adjusted tax levy. That is your entire tax levy for your city for each year, broken down by year. So for the 2024 tax year, for example, your tax levy, the entire tax levy for the city was $3.5 million. That balance was down to already $175,000 before it was even turned over to our office for collection. And so then we've been working on that 2024 tax year for a year. We've gotten it down to about $59,000 and gotten the collection percentage up to 98.3% from 95%. So that's just how you read this particular graphic. And then on the next page, just bare bones collection dollars that were brought in the door. So for here again, we can look from the 2025 tax year. We've gotten $80,000 collected so far, with 2 more months remaining to go. All right, and then beyond that, for those of you who are kind of data people, numbers people, we give you all of our reporting here on the back end, starting on page 22. Breaks it down by property type, breaks it down by, how the age of the accounts. All of that information is there for you to kind of go through on your own to see the backing data for the earlier information that was provided on the earlier reports. Okay. Other questions for me on the delinquent tax side? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Maddie, and she's going to talk about our court fees and fines services for you.
I don't know if it's video.
So good morning, everybody. I'm going to go over our court selection process, the service we do for the city of Kirby. So I first want to state that this is something that's done by state statute. The state statute allows for the referral of delinquent court cases at 61 days of delinquency. Once they're turned over to us, there's a 30% add-on fee that's passed on to the defendant. So when we talk about collecting at no cost, we do that because all of the amounts are passed on to the defendant. Now, anything that comes through the judge, we don't court, there's always a misconception. Everybody's giving out tickets because the city needs money, right? I got a ticket. So the court, though, is not a revenue generator. That's not the purpose of your court, right? The purpose of your officers is issuing citations that are for people who are not in compliance with following, right, regulations and laws that are there. The court is there for resolution. So everyone has an opportunity to go before court and have their citation heard from before a judge. And the judge has certain rules that they also have to follow with indigency and certain opportunities for someone to do. So I just don't like when I hear like, oh, well, the city needs money, so that's why they're doing this. The cities do need money. We all know this, right? We all need money. Just like our houses, right? The bigger our budget is, the better we're able to provide. But at the end of the day, the court is about resolution. And it's about making sure that your community is being safe and taken care of. So if you have any questions, just raise your hand and let me know. Are we gonna, no? Okay, I'll just go through here, it's fine. No, I'll just go through here.
No, I thought this.
So I did put our collection process in here. on what we do from court. So here's our flow chart of the court, the case being referred to us. We start looking for the latest and greatest address that we can mail a defendant a letter. After we mail a defendant a letter, we start making phone calls, so you'll see all of our campaigns there. We have a national call center that's based here in San Antonio, right up on 281 in Tacoma. So if anyone ever wants to take a tour, we're more than happy to show you our full facility that we have. I also provided in the packet the letters that we send out. We send out in the letters, I didn't put the Spanish version, but we do send English on one side, Spanish on the other. Our call center also has a full listing of bilingual operators. We have translator service. We have over like 240 something languages. So if someone calls in and says they speak Portuguese, we may not have someone in our office that speaks it, but we can get a translator on there to be able to do that. So the letters in here, one is when a warrant has been issued attached to the case, and the other letter is what we call a non-warrant letter, when someone does not have a warrant currently issued, but it talks about the potential in there to have that done. So I'm gonna ask you to go to page 1 of the report, and on page 1, it'll show, we've been doing this work for Kirby since 2008. We've gone through a few software conversions, some successful, some not as successful, but I believe we're definitely on track. The past year, there's a court clerk that's been in her position that is so knowledgeable and has really picked up the process on what we need to do in order to have the cases done.
It's good to hear. I think how we got there, just to share, it was important that everyone knows that City Council made an investment. When we came back in 2025, coming before this body, they had to make an investment to actually make that shift. And so it was them understanding the cost-benefit analysis and the return on investment, investing in people, shoring up the department, leading to those results. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. So if you'll see on page 1, we have on there the total amount of citations that have been assigned to us, the amounts that have been, the citations collected and adjusted. So overall, through the life of our contract, there's been 3.3 million collected at 41, a little over 41%. So everyone will ask all the time, well, how does that rank? What should we do? There's not an industry standard for any of this, because again, we don't know what you're issuing, we don't know how you're issuing, and data, of course, is very important. So when someone's issuing a citation, I think I've made an investment in those ticket writers also, right? So if someone's issuing a citation, if someone's typing something in, right, they could type something in, just not on purpose, if they reverse or something, so the information we may have may not match up to the correct defendant, so that's going to take a little longer for that resolution to occur. So when you're on track of doing those things, that's beneficial for your court services program. So I'll show, again, for the life of the contract, we've sent out over 93,000 letters, and we've taken over 200,000 in, we've made over 200,000 outbound calls. So not only are we mailing letters to defendants, we also call them to remind them of the delinquency that's due.
And that number that you just gave, the 200, what did you?
I said over 200 outbound calls, it's 211, 178.
Okay, maybe I'm.
Yes. It's at the very bottom.
Oh, for the collection activity.
Yes.
Now the numbers that you gave, you said amount resolved was 3.3 million?
Yes, right in the middle.
And that is, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's from 2008 to 2026?
Correct.
Okay. And do you happen to know what your yearly collection is?
We're gonna get there.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good. We're gonna get there. So again, the next chart on page 2 shows our overall amount of delinquent debts that's been cleared. And again, this is data through June 30th. So if you go directly to page 3, you'll see for your annual collections, we have this broken down by the city's fiscal year. So, and again, as the city manager pointed out, you can see the difference when you have someone in your court who understands the process and is working through. I mean, we'll go back where for ending in fiscal year 2024, the court had collected, 43,000. But then ending in 2025, you're up to 96. That's a significant difference and I say that to a lot of our clients. When you have someone, your court clerk, who understands the process and can work with the judge, it makes a difference on what is occurring overall, right? But again, we're not a revenue generator, but you want to make sure that someone's going through resolution and taking care of their citations the way they should.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think, do you have a question? Do you have a question on it?
I didn't have a question, but
Okay.
I am a little bit blown away by the difference in the numbers. Like, I knew that was an area we were hurting, but I didn't realize it was
Could be
that
that,
large.
yeah. I mean, that's why you go back, in that kind of COVID area, you see the amounts. It's just the difference on, and I will say, there were kind of some hiccups in some of the personnel that was in there before. One of the big things I will tell you with court needs to really be consistency, right? It needs to be consistency. So with the city of Kirby size, we kind of look at monthly, like on a monthly basis. Let's see what's new. Let's get new cases in. Let's make sure we're having the updates on everyone who paid the month before. Because what we don't want to do is reach out to someone and then they say, well, I already took care of that. I already paid it, right? Because then again, that leads to people like, oh, that city, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm not getting hit as Linebarger. The city's getting hit because they're the ones who it's being referenced to. So, consistency has been better over the past year. I think we probably need to have a discussion somehow on new case referrals, because if you go back to the very first page, in June, we didn't have any new cases referred to us. I think that there's some still issue with warrants, like if we're doing both warrant and not warrant cases, what's kind of our timeline for that? Again, a case has to be 61 days delinquent before it can even be referred to us. So I think that we just need to have a little, we've done some things over the past year, like if your case is still in payment arrangement status and it's over 2 years old and there's still an outstanding balance, you probably should refer that to collection, because that person's, if they haven't paid in 2 years, they're not going to. They need a reminder. And the city just doesn't have the funding like we do to be able to mail and make those phone calls to remind that defendant of their outstanding delinquency. So I think that's a conversation we'll probably have now going, like, I would like to really end this rest of the fiscal year. Like I see already, right? If we did 96, we gotta do more than that for this year, right? But how do we make sure that resolution's happening? Because if you're looking at, let's say, I don't know what your outstanding is, but if you're looking at, hey, we have, 2 million in delinquent citations, but Linebarger only received 100,000, what are you doing with the other 2 point something, right, million outstanding citations you may have? Why haven't you referred them on to us? What's that whole process look like?
One more question.
Sure.
Right here on the collection page, right? There's some citations canceled
Yes.
and amount canceled. What are those referring to?
So again, citation could be canceled because, let's say if someone they had received a citation for failure to maintain financial responsibility. Well, the law, if you provide proof that you have it, your ticket basically, you may have to pay a $10 dismissal fee, but your ticket then no longer exists.
So it's something that maybe wasn't, went into the system correctly, they show you.
No, I won't say that. What I would say is that defendant who received that citation probably complied with whatever the terms were, so their citation then was basically dismissed, right? So there wasn't a collection on it because the law, if you that's one of the easy examples. If you get a ticket for no insurance, but yet you show you had insurance at that time, that ticket, you pay the dismissal fee, but you're not going to pay the $800 that normally that ticket costs.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Right.
And they don't say that, like, hey, you all are taking care of this and not having them pay. That's not the case.
Right.
The case is that they did have it in
They
whatever reason.
Right, could have been in compliance too, right? You also have to have your city in compliance. You know, you have to have, depending on your citation, you have to have a complaint attached. And if you have records from the 70s, like you may have them in your computer system, but you don't have the actual record somewhere, there's no digitized, there's no hard copy, you can't pursue that case, right? So that could be another reason a judge will do an order like, let's just dismiss these, like cases from 70 to 79. Let's just move forward, so that will show up in a cancel. And that would make sense for some cities to do that, because you can't go after someone if you don't have a lot of those correct backup documents. Yes, so that could have been a period too, like when the transition, years ago, transitioning from one software to the other, you know, they didn't get transferred correctly, and I know at the time, again, years ago, the judge was like, I think we just need to not pursue these because we don't have the accurate records.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So in the last page here, I do have your cumulative amounts, and again, it just breaks down, again, by fiscal year, what each annual amount is specific to your collected, your cancel, and any adjustment. And again, your adjusted accounts could be someone received a ticket for $800, the judge says, do this, do that, and then you only have to pay $200. Well, then that ticket then is not canceled, it then gets adjusted because the original balance is not the balance due because they complied with any order the judge may proceed in. Now again, I have to say this, the judge is the only one who can make these type of determinations, right? City manager can't, the council can't, nobody. You know, I've had people call me before and be like, well, just take care of it. That's not, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. You have to go before the court and the judge has to make that determination.
I just want to share also, it's important to look at the last 2 years with the inconsistencies that's happened. A lot of cases you see about $70,000 of things, whether it is no records or information available, like when you have 3 people to come out of the municipal court office and you're looking for a case file, and now it's time for the prosecutor, the judge, they've gotten the information, and we don't have all the information. What happens to that case? It's dismissed. And so the priority that this body, City Council in 2025, did when approving to not only make it a priority, but to invest money into getting a certified clerk versus the 3 years before kind of just, you know, having good people just is not enough. And so now that we have a certified clerk 2, we have another person going through their certified clerk 1, that allows us to be able to put resources into a department that had, you know, $500,000 sitting on another side that couldn't make it over because no one knew the process, because we were still just going through current citations that were being issued and not moving after the 90 days what the other part of the process was. And so I just wanted to share that in reference to operationally how municipal court works, how the city partners with a Linebarger for taxes, and then later on in the presentation we'll kind of go through municipal court in reference to the prosecutor, the judge, who they are and what they do.
Okay. And I will say that, like I said, working with your court clerk over the past year, she has never hesitated to call and be like, I don't understand this, and really want to get thorough and making sure she's following through with the process. So I will applaud all of you for doing that, because it has made and the data doesn't lie. Right? It has made a difference. So I'm always impressed. Sometimes she'll be like, I don't want to ask you, and I'm like, that's what we're here for. We're here to make sure you're going through the process, right? We don't want you to be into any type of irregulation or not following the process. So I'd rather you just call and ask me or send me an email, as opposed to I don't want to ask and then doing something improper. So, are there any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. What we're gonna do, as you're learn, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a 5-minute break to use the restroom. Remember, drinks and snacks are in the back. Still have some breakfast tacos. Restrooms to the left. As we transition to the next speaker, is going to be one of the partners from the law firm. Mr. Dan Santee will be next. So go ahead and stretch your legs for the next 5 minutes, and then we'll move forward after that. If you have any questions, let us know.
That's fine, give us a list.
We really don't have an overseas. We only have a homestead. High taxes, okay.
Go to the top. Send us the, what you have, and then we can pass it out. Okay. All right, let us know. And hey, if you want to come by and talk about the
Since there's no one in Kirby,
there's no.
since there's not one, doesn't, I don't know.
So if you've got over 65 exemption data, then you're looking at the wrong stuff.
Okay.
Well, I guess, here's the
Because
question,
again,
is
like I
it,
said, I have an exemption on everything else for over 65.
you
Even
don't have it as,
district, but not.
Let me,
and it's an exemption, not the deferral, because
No,
it's two
not
different.
deferral. No.
You don't
let me
have,
look to see.
that doesn't add up either, but.
Thanks.
And if you need us to come and talk about it at wherever you're senior center, you can bring the forms to folks and all that.
I think that would be great.
Yeah.
That would be
Let me know.
great. Yes, yes, and maybe also even go to the senior center.
Yeah.
That would be a great thing too. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right,
Bye.
thank y'all.
Bye.
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 You too.
Drive safe.
Yeah, our
So do we have a clicker or do we have to move it manually?
So since it's a Zoom, the clicker's not up yet. Because the Zoom is.
Yeah, that's very, well, then we'll let you ask questions now, because then you can sign up.
Because it's on the.
Okay.
Since we're sharing it over.
They didn't.
Oh, okay.
Nobody signed up.
Okay.
I know they don't. I know they don't. Hi, well, thank you for that, I appreciate it, nobody else here recognizes that.
Good grief.
Yeah,
God
maybe so.
damn. Oh, Lord,
Yeah.
We get to go do things a little bit more now. But I still keep watching. And it's all the relationships you develop, it's going out and seeing people, meeting new people. That's the part that's complex.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I bet you met so many different people doing that. I can only imagine.
Yeah, and I went to JA's legislative boot camp. They had, I don't know if you saw them advertise that.
Okay.
Yeah, so when I was in, we talked about programming and getting ready for legislative sessions. And the legislative thing takes so much.
Street, how you doing?
But then it's like, how do you do the
So on the-
ahead of time?
So changing the size, I just need
Because it's
to,
Zoom, yeah, you'll have to change the.
what is it about? Yeah.
That in itself is.
It's a lot. Oh, it's a lot.
So I got to see, everyone from TMO and then other people that have always been in the training.
So, Coast.
Yes.
You feel really good about
Absolutely. Yes. Positive direction. Hey. Great.
I'm just gonna creatively acquire my chair because those ones back there are not
Yes, sure. Yes. And then you can spring the other one. We just walk swap it? Same thing. Okay, yeah, all right. Alright, all right.
I understood, that was not a question.
Okay,
That was a
all right.
statement.
Okay, yeah, you're right, yeah.
I heard you tell me.
And then we can also, so somebody can sit over here. This moves up just a tad. Y'all are gonna have to, roll. When she comes by, you're gonna have to scoot up. I'm saying in case somebody comes, they can sit next to off the other street.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And what, you know what, it's the chair too. We have regular, that's why.
We have chairs right here. What are we talking about?
I know, I'm saying, in order to get in and out, those chairs, it's hard to with somebody sitting. If it was a regular folding chair.
It's still be hard. We tried it.
Okay, yeah, dramatic. Everybody's dramatic. It's not that, you know. Everybody's dramatic.
Yeah, because that's harder for, you know.
With comfortability and furniture.
No, not her. I'm saying somebody else come take it and leave.
You know what I'm saying about that?
Well, we just,
I need what? You asked me, now everybody.
See, right here.
everybody has a, everybody expert.
I'll get the chair right there for you.
Of course, keep my desk a little bit cleaner so there's none of these binders. Oh, y'all want the binders back and keep the papers. Break it. Everybody. I was gonna put my, is it time up?
No. We got time.
I was gonna throw my stuff in our car and leave on space. What we've gone through already. Okay, I'll put it back. But I was trying to look, my dad is fishing. This is what he sent me a picture. Yes. He went fishing and come back.
Where's the alligator from?
No, Louisiana.
Oh, okay. I thought you were trying to say here. I was like, wait a minute.
He's just, as I'm in a meeting, he's like, look at our car. He's holding up an elevator. He's like, we keeping that
That's so
one.
cute though.
Yeah, it's small. He's like, well, we keeping that one. Chair, and then I'll put the other chair there. And that's when, in case somebody. Swap that
Yeah, I don't know about this arrangement, but it's just not conducive to.
Hey, Kathy.
Sir.
This was, I thought I sent this to you, but.
It's all right. You can have this table. I'm giving it up. I've had enough fun.
Oh, okay. Thank you. We appreciate you coming today.
Yeah, sure you do.
Have a great Saturday.
We have plans. I postponed them until I showed up for this.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Please,
I know those are nice, right? Yeah, with the multi-adapters, yeah. It's hot.
Yes, oh my goodness.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm gonna do the same thing.
No, I'm leaving. I'm done. I'm supposed to be someplace else right now. Is there a trash can?
I'll take it. Isn't it?
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Did you want your pen?
No, thank you.
It says City of Kirby on it.
Oh, I know what it says on it, thank you.
Did you bring the sage?
You're serious? Sorry.
Thank you for adapting to our small.
Oh, it's cute. How,
I think it's cute.
I'm trying to figure
It
out.
was a house, and I think for this being a small house, it has a lot of room in it.
But I'm trying to figure out what this building is for. What is,
There's
it's like,
Women's Unlimited.
okay.
They're like a nonprofit group that helps women in business.
Ah, okay. Specific for women-owned businesses, local businesses.
Very cool.
And not even just, it's not just women that own businesses, but perhaps, business women, that want to come out and network or what have you. It's a really large organization. You should.
Yeah, because I was trying to, I was like, it's something new.
And they collaborate a lot with the city of Kirby, actually. So they help us out a lot with, when we need space for, and they sponsor something, they come out to the city.
I was waiting on you.
Oh, hey, I'm sorry.
That's true. Like Mary's not there, so
Yeah, they're true.
I'll open our door. We have a private access over here. Okay. Oh, it's just a little break out. I'm about to close my door so you can go on in. There's some snacks in there.
So you didn't bring the stage? Where's Steve? What's wrong? Are you sick?
That is the name I gave.
The food yesterday made me sick. When Moxie got sick, the heartburn, I sat down within 10 minutes. I was like, oh, I went to the restroom, but I got sick. And last night I had a hard time sleeping because it was just so bad. And I barely even made that sauce. So I don't know if it was the food, the spices in the food, or what.
Do you mind if I sip my water in case I have?
Of course.
Okay, never mind. For you, it's
We're gonna start in a minute.
Oh, we're still live.
We're gonna start in a minute.
Are you on Christmas?
I'm fine, my hair.
Chief Cardona, so we can start.
We're on 20.
No, we didn't notice it before.
No, I don't know. But I'm just saying we don't have much. You locked it.
Who's this right now? Oh.
Cardona, yeah, as soon as she gets back.
We're still live. We are coming back. And then I'll let, I'll keep this and then pass it over. Perfect. Look at that. Everybody understands real time.
I like this because it's something we'll all use.
Yeah, because remember last year our shirts were blue last year. This year it's black. And then I like the navy blue that Crime Control has. It's gonna be our next one.
I bought some, there in the cleaners and Kirby cleaners.
Oh, we already got blue.
Well, I bought some.
Huh?
We already have blue.
Yeah, you can't keep getting the same color.
I know, you said you want to get navy blue next year.
No, we have that blue. That's not navy blue. So we have that blue was the first shirt. This is their second shirt, and each year you stay with us, you get a shirt. Strategic goal. Investing in our organizational culture and staff development.
It's what keeps me here.
That's what keeps me.
We didn't get the memo, we just wore black. It worked out. I wish I could say it was intentional, but. Oh, yeah. I said, hey, Jack, we're gonna wear black.
All righty.
All right.
Again, we're back. We're getting ready to get started. Councilmember Street has left. We are going to have our city council training by one of the partners from Denton Borough, Mr. Dan Santee.
And I don't know that everybody here knows me. I did, for a minute, I was attending the Kirby City Council meetings and then I had to go off to another assignment. But I'm excited to be back, and I just want to commend y'all for investing the time on a weekend and last night as well. I mean, investing time in training, investing time in learning your roles and being better for your citizens. Cities don't do it enough. So, Mayor, I know this was, you spearheaded this along with Brian, so I commend y'all for making that investment. We are currently your city attorney, and when I was asked to come do this, I know Natalie did some training for y'all before, and it was well received. So we used some of those slides. I added some to it. But here's the thing: when I do council retreat training, it only works from my perspective if it's a conversation, if it's interactive, because you guys are the ones who are in there doing these things, and so it's often attorneys. We know what the law says, and we know what other cities do, and we know what we recommend, but it has to be conversational to be more meaningful. The other thing that we're doing at our law firm, my law firm, is we are starting a training initiative, a training division, so to speak. We brought Bennett Sandlin on board from TML. Marisa Jimenez, former TML president, is also going to be part of that initiative. And I brought her along with me because what she can offer as part of this training that I cannot is the perspective of an elected official, having been there and knowing that role, and hearing me do this same training when she was on my council in Floresville, and what you might hear say, I don't know, what you might hear say is, well, this is what the attorney says, but here's what that really means, or here's what that really looks like in my experience and things such as that. So it's just a different perspective that I really can't offer. My role is, everybody has their distinctive roles in all of this, right? You are the city council, you develop, you formulate the policy, you make the policy directives. Your city manager, when we talk about the city manager role, he carries out that policy. He funnels that down to all the rank and file employees so that they carry out the policies. Our role in it is reviewing those policies with you and making sure that they are legal, making sure they are best practices, making sure they conform with the law. The other thing that we're going to try to talk about today, or we're going to cover, is some highlights about the Texas Open Meetings Act and the Public Information Act. I've added a few things in here. There was a recent Fifth Circuit Court decision that we're going to talk about having to do with citizen comments. It changed the law of the land in the Fifth Circuit through federal court. So I'll make sure y'all have that information because we may need to review. I took a quick look at your rules of procedure and things such as that. We're going to want to make sure those are in line with that new ruling. And we're also going to touch on just some topics that come up from time to time, such as employee gifts and some aspects of the Open Meetings Act that are kind of subtle, like meetings with developers and things such as that. So that's what I plan to touch on. There is no, interrupt me at any time. If you want to ask a question, you want to say something, anyone in here can do that. And then I will also, we'll be handing it back and forth on different slides when we get into the roles and responsibilities. So if that sounds good, we'll get started. So, I've covered this already. This is just talking about the responsibilities on the board. Here's what I'm going to jump into though. My role as a lawyer, Daniel Jones is working with you guys right now. So anytime an attorney represents an organization, so we represent the entity, I think everybody realizes that. We do not represent any council members individually. We don't represent any of the employees individually. We represent the entity, that corporate entity. As such, our responsibilities are unique with regard to when you start talking about attorney-client privilege or the attorney-client relationship. When you're the attorney dealing with a corporate entity, but in particular a governmental corporate entity, our role is more narrowly defined and tailored than it is, like, say, when you go in and you hire a lawyer for yourself. When you go in and you hire a lawyer for yourself, they are working for you individually. As a corporate lawyer for a governmental entity, when any one of you or any employee comes to me, for example, let's say, and this happens I've been doing this 30 years. This is not unusual. An employee will come to you and say, I have something I want to share with you, but this is privileged, right? You're my lawyer, right? Time out. That's what I have to tell them. I have to make them aware that no, I'm not. I'm not your lawyer. I represent the entity. And I'm happy to hear anything that you have to say, but understand that I will then take that information and it's going to go right into whatever your policies say. It's going to go right into your process. Does that make sense to everybody? So if an employee comes to me and discloses something, let's say, and I've had, here's a real life example, not from the city of Kirby, but where an employee comes and says, wants to complain about another employee's behavior. Well, yes, I am the city attorney, but I'm not the HR director, I'm not the city manager, I'm none of those things. So I can hear the information, but it is not privileged. And I have to let them know that up front, that if you tell me this, understand, I'm going to take that information, and I'm going to go to Brian and say, you have this situation in one of your departments, this needs to go get plugged into your HR process, et cetera, et cetera. It is not confidential. By the same token, if I have a city council member come to me, and you want to share with me information or concerns or anything about another council member or about an employee, anything like that, we're going to have a very similar conversation. I'm going to let you know up front, this cannot be privileged and confidential because I do not represent you individually, I represent the entity. Now, if the information you're giving me is harmful to the entity, there's a process we need to follow. And that's just to make sure that everyone understands, because I would never want to mislead an employee or elected official as to what I can and cannot do. Another example. People send emails all the time and they copy me, right? They'll be sending emails back and forth to other employees or to someone else or to they copy the attorney. And then when we get a Public Information Act request, they think that is privileged, that that's attorney-client privilege because I was copied. It is not. It is not attorney-client privilege if I'm just copied and I'm giving no legal advice. You can't cloak an email in attorney-client privilege just by copying a lawyer. Just like you can't cloak any telephone conversation or any meeting anywhere just by asking the lawyer to attend. And I have been on calls, I've been on video conferences, I've been in meetings where I've said, excuse me, hold on, does anyone have a legal question here? Because I'm not hearing any legal questions. My presence here, they need to understand my presence here does not make all your conversations privileged. It doesn't suddenly make all of those things legal issues. If it's a legal issue, let's get the legal issue out. And let's talk about it. That is privileged and confidential. The rest of that information is not. And that's often misunderstood. And so when we talk about the roles and responsibilities of the attorney, that's one of them, right? Is me making sure that my fellow representatives of our mutual client, our entity, all understand what our roles are, what our responsibilities are, and how we need to handle those. So, this is an important one as well. This one comes up from time to time. And again, these are not examples about your city. These are just things I've accumulated over time. If I become aware that a violation of law has potentially happened within my entity, and in 30 years, I've encountered that, where someone's behavior, someone's conduct, or something that has happened may be a violation of law. What do I do, right? Some would say that, and I've had people say, well, why didn't you go tell the Texas Rangers? Why didn't you go here? Why didn't you go there? Actually, I can't. Honestly, I cannot. Not my first step. My first step is to try to resolve the issue. Have you resolved that issue? Right? Is because it is an entity issue, and these are from my professional rules of responsibility. My first responsibility isn't to go tattletale on my client representatives or someone else, to some third party. My job is to say, hey, here's an issue that may or may, I'm not the fact finder, right? We don't know. So this could be a violation, or this could be conduct of violation, policies or procedures. Can we resolve that? Can you guys resolve that? Because at some point, if it's not able to be resolved, then I don't have a choice. I do at that point. But the first step is it can be resolved. If it's not resolvable, or because the nature of it, it's not something that you can take up internally, then I can go outside and reporting. So, most of your policies are gonna have something built in that way. Your complaint process, for example, your complaint procedures for personnel, those are baked in. That whole resolution process is baked in. Where it's not is with elected officials and council members. And so in those instances, that's where those can be tougher to resolve, but there's a process that still has to be followed from my perspective. Doesn't mean you have to. Nobody in that position is bound by that. I, as the attorney, am bound by that. Right? So if one elected official decides they're going to go to an outside entity or an outside authority with an issue or a complaint, that's fine. That's y'all's choice to do that. I am just talking about my responsibilities and whether I'm obligated to do that first, or if my first obligation is to try to resolve that internally. Is everyone clear on that? Does that make sense? I've covered this. These are just the specific notes from our professional rules on when our representation is to an organization. And one of the things that we always try to keep in mind as the attorney, and one of Natalie's slides in here talks about our philosophy and our and how we try to approach these things, is that, look, the unique thing about, it's a beautiful thing and it's a unique thing about representing a governmental entity, and in particular a city, is that you guys all have your constituents. Every one of you know the people, because they've got you on speed dial, right? When at 3 in the morning, when there's a breakage in a line, he's gonna get a call, you're gonna get a call, and anybody on council that those people know who are being affected are going to get a call. Trust me, I've gotten those calls. When I have an incident, if I have, unfortunately, anytime there's an officer involved shooting or anything like that, I get a call too, right? I've had to go out before, because that police lawyer is gonna be out there, I'm gonna be out there too, right? So when you're representing an organization, that entity, those responsibilities, and when those responsibilities kick in are 24/7. For me and for each of you that are elected to represent that entity and those constituents. Where it is different for me is I may work with your constituents, I do not represent them. And so when a call comes in, because they do, from your citizens, we're not being rude when we won't take that call, okay? We are not authorized to take that call unless you or Brian authorizes us to take that call. We don't take calls from citizens of Kirby. And that's, again, that's not to be rude, it's because we don't have an attorney-client relationship with them. We have an attorney-client relationship with the entity, and you are our bosses in that role. So if our bosses say, this citizen has an issue, will you listen to them and see if there's a legal solution to that? We will do that, 100%. But if we don't get that message from your employees or from you, we're not taking the call. We're not gonna bill you for something we're not authorized to do because we don't have that same relationship. All right, does that make sense to everyone? And listen, we're happy to do it when we get a call. Often we will want someone from your city chief. I've done this with citizens before. Like, if there's an issue, I often want a city representative on that call as well. So I'm not the only one hearing it, and I'm not the only one who's hearing from the citizen. I want someone from the city to be part of that. So if you call me and say, hey, can you do this? I might say, hey, yeah, can you be on that call with me? And that's just for both of our benefits. So we're hearing the same thing at the same time. That way it doesn't become a game of telephone where it changes every time you tell someone else what happened, right? Because normally I could record those, we don't often record those, but it's good to have two sets of ears when anything like that happens, or even better, in person. Sit down with somebody in person, because often that can also change the temperament of that conversation, right? Because if they're calling the lawyer, it's not good, right? If a citizen wants to talk, it's not good. And the first question I ask them, what do you think the first question I ask a citizen if we end up having a conversation with them? What's the first question I ask? Do you have a... That's right. Because I can talk to them. If they're represented, that conversation stops. And it's not because, again, it's not to be rude. It's because under my rules, I can't have that conversation if they're represented by an attorney. I need to at least call that attorney and say, hey, your client is up here at City Hall and they want to talk to me and someone from the city, do you object to that? Can you get up here? Do you want to be put you on speaker? I have to do that.
Can you share on that same point, for council's benefit, what if a local citizen is suing the city? What should their interaction be for staff and employees with that resident?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that comes up. And, the conservative answer is don't talk to them, right? We may or may not be representing you in that litigation. If it's a TML case, someone else may be assigned. And so we'll also suggest you talk to that attorney, right? Because they're the ones actually representing the entity before you have those conversations. For a council member, y'all want to be helpful, right? You're always wanting to be responsive. You're always wanting to be helpful. And, I work with so many council members, and they believe they can solve the problem. If you didn't, you won't run for council. You're a problem solver. So if this citizen, even if they're suing you, I have council members like, I know I can do it. I want to do it. I want to try to make this better. The problem is that you don't want to become a fact witness. You don't want to become an after-the-fact fact witness. You don't want to say something that unintentionally contradicts what actual witnesses have already said and they have a record of, their attorney has a record of, right? And so not only you don't want to meet with generally, the general rule, don't meet with somebody who's suing the city, but if you just want to and you have to, you need your attorney present. Whoever that is, and you need their attorney present. And those conversations, though the intention is always good, I have no doubt about that. The intention is good. The consequences for you as a council member are too risky. I don't advise you to do that, right? Because that's not your role in that moment. And when you go outside your roles and responsibilities as a council member, you may or may not still have the coverage you think you have, right? When you are functioning in your role and duties, you are covered by your areas of emissions, you're covered by all your policies, you're covered by your immunities. If you come outside that role, then it becomes great, and it becomes a fact issue, and we don't want that. We don't want fact issues, and we don't want you being a fact witness. And so, you have to be mindful of that. You have to be careful about that. And when in doubt, the good answer for them when in doubt is say, let me check with my legal counsel. It takes that long to call either the TML attorney or call our office, give us the scenario, and we can give you a better advice as to whether or not you should have that meeting or the ground rules for such a meeting. Because I'm all for settling things. I'm all for settling disputes. Litigation's expensive. Get it out of the courtroom. I'm 100% in favor of that. But we want to make sure there's ground rules for those kind of conversations so that they can't be used against you and you don't get drugged into something. Have any of you three been deposed before? Given a deposition? Because I have. I've been deposed before. My least favorite thing to do is be sit on that side of the table. I've done depositions. I've been deposed. I'd much rather do depositions than be deposed. Because when I'm doing the deposition, I know the questions. And usually the answers. And I know what I want to say. When they're asking me questions, I'm like, oh my gosh, what are they going to ask me? And it's like, because even if I answer, it's like, I might give one answer, my face might be giving a completely different answer. And it's being videotaped, it's like, oh my gosh, this is not good. Listen, it's just a true story. I will be on a dais, I will get text messages from employees or people in the audience saying, why does that look on your face? Like, oh my gosh, my face is doing it again. And I'm just sitting in a council meeting listening to discussion. And I'm like, I gotta work on that.
I speak about that a lot. Facial expressions.
So our city attorney philosophy, clearly, we want to provide the best legal advice possible. Here's the thing too. What I would say for whether it's DJ sitting in your meeting or Natalie or me or whomever, and when that question comes from the dais and we have a blank look on our face, we just may not know the answer, and don't please never be offended if the answer from your attorney is, I don't know. I don't know. I know where to find that answer though. I mean, I'll get you an answer. I preach to my associates and I tell my clients, look, I am not going to answer just to answer. If I don't know the answer, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm gonna tell you I don't know the answer, because I don't know all the answers. And true story also, it's kind of funny, Maddie sat back here, when she was on the city council in Floresville and I was the attorney, she took great sport and fun in trying to stump the attorney. And I swear, I don't know how many hours she spent preparing for those meetings, and I'd go in there and she'd ask me, she goes, I have a question for the attorney. I was like, oh no, she's got a question for the attorney. Because I didn't know where it was going to come from. I tapped out, I'll be honest with you. I called her and I said, hey, here's the thing. If you have questions on the packet, legal questions, if you could call me and ask those questions ahead of that meeting, it's gonna be better for everybody. You can still ask them in the meeting on behalf of your constituents, but at least, I'll have a better idea of what you're looking for and what you want. We kind of had to call truce.
Just trying to make sure you're paying attention.
Yeah, that was true also. She likes to make sure I was paying attention. But it's true though. If you get your packet, you have legal questions, or if you get questions from your constituents, so big deal to shoot an email to DJ or call and just say, hey, this might come up in the meeting. And it's just, and I'm not making excuses, we have a lot of clients, we have a lot of questions coming in, and we just don't know everything. And so, but our role is to get you the best legal advice, even if that means telling you I don't know, and I'll get you the answer. Second one, we do not make policy determinations. And the one conversation I have with my attorneys more than any is stay the heck out of the policy, right? And when you've done this a long time, I was in-house with the city of Abilene for 18 years. So I was the city attorney for a city in-house, meaning I was the attorney and I hired other attorneys. I had a whole office, I had a legal office that was part of the city. Y'all are not large enough to have, you don't have an in-house city attorney like City of San Antonio has, for example. But that's what I did at Abilene. And when you're in-house, when you're baked into that environment, when you and the city manager are hanging out all the time talking about stuff, it's real easy to get involved in the policy. You have to really resist it because that city manager might say, what do you think about this? And Larry Gilley was my city manager. He's kind of a legend in the business. And I would ask, I said, are you asking for a legal opinion? Or are you just asking for my opinion? And I would always make him tell me, right? Because if he's just asking for Dan's opinion, then I'm answering kind of as a citizen then. And I was like, okay, this isn't a legal issue then. I'm just telling you my opinion on how that's going to be received by the public. That's much more difficult to do when you represent 75 cities across Texas like our firm does. Or when you're a city attorney in, 8 different cities like that, right? I reject getting involved in that. I don't want to be involved in policy. I need to make sure that policy is legal. And I could pull up lots of emails that I have sent to my clients when they're doing things, and I will email back, respectfully, I don't see a legal issue here. This is a policy determination you guys need to make for what direction you want to take, and then when you make that decision, I'll make sure it's legal, right? And that is what we try to, that's not our function. And we're not being rude if we say, it's not me saying that's not my job, right? It's like us trying to make sure that we stay out of the policy and respectfully leave that to you and the city manager. And when you want our input, we will give you input, but it will be from a legal perspective on that policy. Lastly, politics, okay? I will only ever work in local government because it is nonpartisan. I don't like politics. I reject politics. I don't pick sides. And one of the things that is tough if you have a divided, not saying that you do, but when you encounter a divided city council, okay, is that inevitably, not whether it's here, whether it's Floresville, whether it's Abilene, whether it's anywhere, Schertz, Cibolo, if you have a divided council, what do they intuitively want? They want to be right. They want to be right. They want the people they disagree with to be wrong. They want the city manager to agree with whatever they're saying. They want the city attorney to agree with whatever. That's human nature. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't like being put in that position. I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to, because I represent the entity. The entity and I don't care who sits in the chairs, right? And I famously said that, I don't know about famously, but I said that in Floresville, and my niece never let me let it down, because I said, I do not, because there was a kind of a disagreement going on, and I basically said, I don't care who sits in these chairs. Because whoever sits in these chairs, I'm going to work with. I have to work with. I have to work with. It's my job. It's my responsibility to the corporate entity. It's his job and responsibility to the corporate entity. And every employee, the same thing. And, you know, it's even, for me, I go to multiple cities, but for your employees, man, that's how they feed their family, is that job. You know, that they have to work for whoever sits in those chairs. And so, just like I don't like politics, and I'm not trying to speak for your employees, I think generally, because I was in-house. Every election, I was concerned, how am I going to feed my family? You know, I can count to a majority, right? And I was like, the joke for in-house city attorneys is, if you have 7 council members, right, the joke is always, you gotta keep 4 of them happy at all times. It doesn't matter which 4 are happy, but you gotta keep 4 happy all the time. That's no way to live. That's no way to live. And so when I took this job, you know, where I have 75 clients, I was like, whatever. I was like, I've got other clients. No, that's really not what I think. That's really not the attitude, but it is in the sense that you're not going to find, and you shouldn't find, your city attorney they should never be taking sides. Our side is the law. Our side is what is legal and just and in the best interest of our client entity. And we're going to agree with you sometimes, and we're going to agree with other people sometimes, and y'all may not agree with each other. But we're not going to get into politics, because all we are trying to do is make sure that that decision represents what is legal and in the best interest of the entity. And sometimes that gets lost in the shuffle, but it shouldn't. It's very important. It's very important, because we're all in the same boat. Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask you, what is the attorney's role when you're in you're attending a council meeting?
I'm sorry.
And you know, perhaps things get a little bit passionate. The discussion gets really passionate, and it's revolving around a legal item. At what point can the attorney step in and kind of re-gear or, you know, change course of that conversation?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So here's how I handle situations, and then my colleague can correct me in case I handle them differently for when she was on the council. But if it's legal in nature, what you will often hear me say is, I will ask the mayor, can you please ask the council to take us into closed session? And the reason why I will do that is if it's truly a legal issue, and I need to counsel my client, which is everybody sitting up there are the representatives of that client, I don't want to do that in an open session. And it's not for lack of transparency, okay? It's actually for increased honesty. You know, if you've got a legal issue and you're struggling with it in public, hey, let's take a time out also. Everybody catch your breath. Let's go into closed session. Ask me the actual legal questions. You know, because it's not people. Let's attack the issue. Let's stop attacking each other. Let's stop attacking each other's views on the issue, and let's attack the issue. The issue's the problem here. And if it's a legal issue, I can help you with it. And we can all move forward with an understanding and agreement back here in closed session as to what's the true issue, what's the legal ramifications of it, and then we can go out and we can address it with votes or whatever we need to do. Yes, ma'am.
I'm happy you mentioned closed session, because that's a question that's has become contentious lately. Closed session, legally, are we allowed to make it a no phone or recording environment? Because that's the purpose of a closed session, because that's the area that we're struggling with right now.
Yes, and I have clients that do that. Do you want to speak to that at all?
Sure.
Yeah.
So part of that has to do with trust, right? And knowing that everything that you say will stay in those around, in that room. And so when there isn't that trust there, mayor, the figurehead, whomever is taking control of the conversation might make that request. Do people get offended? Absolutely, people get offended. Excuse me, this is my phone, I'm not recording, right? So it's a little difficult to explain the reasons why, but we all know the reasons why, because I don't trust that you're gonna keep this in here. And how do I know you're not recording? And how do I know this doesn't get out? When you are very clear of the expectations from the beginning, well, this is what we're doing from now on, no matter what the closed session is. If it's on real estate, if it's not even consultation at the attorney, we're not gonna take our phones. We're not gonna have our smart watches on. We're gonna do it old school and take notes. The notes that you'll keep, the city will keep, we'll do that by hand, right? And it's not because you don't trust everybody, it's an expectation. So if that is the best method for the city, is to put those things in place, not because of any particular person, but because you feel that is in the best interest of the entity, then I would say you go ahead and do that, and you could come to an agreement within council to say, we all agree this is a good thing, and this is how we will continue to have closed session from now on. It's a hard conversation, trust me. It is. That happened with our council too, and then at one point it was gradual, right? So it was everybody put their phones up here, wherever we can see them face up, right? And then it turned into, well, my kids are at home, I need to have my phone. Or, I even said at one point, my sister was expecting, I said, my sister's expecting, it could be any minute, I have to get up and go. And then they looked at me and I said, I'm gonna give my phone to the secretary, if it goes off, she has to come get me, like I'm leaving. So I compromised, right? Because I compromised when someone else compromised and said, well, yeah, I guess if my kid texts, let me tell her what the name is on the phone so she knows to come get me. So sometimes it might take you setting the example to say, I'll go ahead and do this, even though I don't exactly agree with it, or I don't feel too comfortable with it.
Okay, thank you for the answer. Now, the scenario of someone to say, no, I'm gonna bring my phone, I don't care what the requirements have been set by this body legally, or how do you guide us on something like that?
Right, so I would definitely put it in policy, and if it's part of your council rules and procedures, where you've adopted it, no electronic devices in closed session, and somebody says, no, I'm bringing it, then they don't get to come to closed session.
And we're currently working through that. We've had our first reading and conversation. It's supposed to be coming back to the council body for adoption. And so that's where we're at with this process in reference to, do we have video, audio recordings, phones, or anything in executive session? That is what has been discussed before. It's gonna come back to city council for them to make a decision as far as making it a policy, like what is the ordinance or resolution in reference to actually adopting that. And so it's simply not like, oh, you can't come to this meeting. It is, what is the policy that we've implemented that now sets the rules of how we're gonna operate.
Yeah, once the council, especially a home rule city, decides the rules it's going to play by, everybody has to play by it. And when you hear arguments about, I have a right, no, you don't have a right. Even when you get into speech and free speech, and the chief will tell you this too, it's time, place, and manner. Just because you have the right to say something doesn't mean you get to say it whenever and wherever you want to. There's consequences for that. Same thing with votes.
He said time, place, and quote, manner, which is what we've been dealing with, the manner.
So so there are limitations. And those change though. Understand that the limits and how those are interpreted change. Anytime the Fifth Circuit gets a case, they can decide. But as far as council rules on electronic devices in closed session, that's sound. You can absolutely prohibit those from being back there. And Marisa gave you a great example of a workaround. If you're worried, if you're gonna have an emergency, whatever, that's fine. Is there anyone out there you trust that can keep your phone and come get you if you need to go to an emergency? It's that simple. But you're not back there that long. It's the same reason why if you've been in a closed session with an attorney from my firm and they pass out legal documents, what do they do at the end of it? They take them back. We don't give them to you electronically. And it's not because we don't trust you, it's because that's the easiest way to protect you and me. And so I'm gonna hand them out in written form, and I'm gonna take them back up. Because those, and I number them myself. Like, I make sure I get them all back. So if I'm passing out something closed session, they will be numbered. I'm gonna pass them out. I know how many I passed out. I'm gonna take them back up. If I don't have them all, hold on. Yeah, where's my other one? I numbered them, right? And that's just to protect everyone involved. The other thing I want to touch on, and I'm sorry, I'm long-winded, I apologize, but is that, so, there are always going to be circumstances where the law is gray. That's like 75% of the law. It honestly is. Everybody likes to think it's black and white. The only things that are often black and white are more in the criminal realm. When you get into the civil realm, it's all gray. And attorneys, we live in the gray. We practice in the gray. And you can get a different answer from 10 different attorneys on the same question. Because they all have different comfort levels of where in that gray they want to operate or where they want their client to operate. That is not my decision, right? And it's not DJ's, Daniel Jones's decision. It's not Natalie, whoever's sitting in there with you. Their job is to inform you as fully as they can on what the law says, how they feel about it, how they interpret it. At the end of the day, though, if you don't agree with them or you don't want to do what they're suggesting or what they're saying, also, that's perfectly fine. It's not my job to tell you you can't do something. Some of my clients want me to say, tell us if we can do this or not do it. You can do whatever you want. It's not up to me. I'm just telling you the consequences if other people disagree with you. What the law says can happen or not happen. I'm going to give you the consequences, the possibilities. I'm going to tell you what the case law says, what best practices might be. But at the end of the day, once you make your decision, I'm going to defend that decision to the best of my ability. But I'm also going to let you know up front, here are the potential pitfalls to that decision. But it's never your attorney's job to tell you, no, you can't do something. We're not going to do that. Most attorneys aren't. And it's not that they're wishy-washy, it's that that's not our role. We're going to tell you, here's what's legal, here's what's not legal. And if you want to do what's not legal, that's your choice, but it is not legal. And there are consequences if it is not legal. And we will try our best to do it. I mean, that's all we can do. And that's what this last one is. It's not our responsibility. We don't make decisions other than we advise you on what the legal consequences are to your decisions. As you know, you're a home rule city. You have a charter. I always tell, I'm kind of a charter nerd. I don't have a problem with that. I'm not even a recovering charter nerd. I love charters. And when I was with the city for 18 years, I carried my charter with me. Now we have electronic stuff, which is easier. So this is the Stone Ages. I carried it. I had a little printed copy of the charter. There's a little bound copy from the city secretary's office. And I always had it in my little folder I carried around. Somebody asked me a question, let me look at our Constitution. Because that's where I started, right? Because we're home rule. So if the state doesn't say specifically that we can't do it, we can do it. That's home rule in a nutshell. If the state hasn't strictly prohibited it or told us we can't do it, we can do it. As long as our charter authorizes it. As long as that charter gives me broad enough authority, I can do it. And that's how laws ought to get changed, is creative cities do creative things, and then the legislature's like, well, that's not fair. That's not fair. The state should get their slice of that pie. And then they meet, and they change it all up and make it harder on you guys. And then creative cities do creative things, and then the laws change again. But, use that home rule charter for what it's meant to be, right? It is your constitution. It is hopefully broadly written. I've done a general review of your charter, which was updated, I think, in 21. But, that's what it's there for, right? It's to give you broad authority, as broad as possible, and that you can work with your city manager and legal counsel to kind of flesh that out to the fullest of its ability, and take advantage of being home rule. You are also a council manager form of government, which means that you as the city council appoint a city manager, and that city manager is the one he is the one who oversees all those employees. The council doesn't. His role we'll get to in a second, but it's in the charter, it's in your personnel policies, and it's in your code of ordinances as to what he's responsible for. And if he is responsible for it, y'all can sit back and just like, okay, well, that's it, Even whether you want to or not, that's what I advise you to do. Sit back and say, that's city manager. When you get those calls, well, you call city manager, and you know, because he's the one that answers to us. And the reality is, now in your charter you do have a provision. I will say this: in your charter you do have a provision that says you have the right. Not all charters have this, so this is good. You have the right to ask him about specific employees or functions and things such as that.
They have a concern.
That's right. But you're still holding him accountable, right? Not those employees. And the reason why that matters, because I've dealt with this before, is even a city council member with good intentions who interacts with an employee directly, you're putting yourself and that employee at great risk. And it's not for maybe reasons why you can. It is because you're the council. No employee is going to take your word and just ignore what you have to say. So if you give that employee advice, or you say, this is how I would do that, that employee has a dilemma now. My elected official, my council member is telling me this is what I should do. But they also may have somebody who supervises them that says something different. So they have this dilemma. You've now put that employee in a very, very tough spot. And I had this happen in the real world. One of my favorite, well, my second favorite council member of all time. Rice is my favorite, but I'm contractually obligated to say that until death. But the second, the one who got bumped down a level was Stinky Steve Savage. And that's his name, Stinky Steve. Well, he's Steve Savage, but the Stinky was his business, right? The Stinky Steve, because he did septic systems. And he had these vac trucks, and he went around the county and cleaned out septic tanks and stuff. Well, the city of Abilene had vac trucks, and one day Stinky Steve's driving down the road and sees a city of Abilene vac truck, and everybody's staring at it. Y'all know how? I mean, no offense to city employees, but you know how sometimes as city employees we can just stare at something, like we can admire the problem, right? Just look at it, because nobody wants to call Brian, right? Nobody wants to call the supervisor. You're like, oh, you know, listen, the truck's not sunken and we don't know why. So poor Steve, Steve pulls over and he's just trying to help because he owns vac trucks. And he tells them, here's what you should do. And they're just looking at him. And just at that point on the council, Steve had this reputation. Let me just back up just a second. Because Steve ran for council because he was going to blow it up. Steve was a libertarian, and it was nonpartisan, but Steve was a libertarian. So he's like, we're spending too much money, the employees are overpaid, nobody's working. And I mean, he had all these ideas. He'd make all these public information act requests all the time, wanted to see all these records, because he just knew something was being hidden, right? But he wasn't, because here's what I did. I went to him one day, because he kept doing this out of the way. He'd come to council meetings and then make these information requests at council meetings. I pulled him aside. I said, Mr. Savage, this before he was even around, I said, Mr. Savage, look, my office is just down. Why don't you come talk to me? Because my office handles all these requests you're making. Why don't you come talk to me? He's like, what? I can do that? I said, yeah, you can do that. I'll make time. Come and sit down with me. So he did. And we had a long conversation. He goes, I'm going to run for council. I'm going to change all this stuff. I said, that's your prerogative. You got one vote. You run for council, you get your vote. And you should vote whatever. If you want, you vote whatever your conscience is. You be a voice for that. Whatever that is, that's your prerogative. That's what you get to do. And he ran for council and won. You know what he learned? It wasn't everything being covered. Because now I told us that, hey, you're on council. You got a special right of access to records. You don't even have to do those requests anymore. So, but you're also responsible for them. When we give you those records, you're a custodian. Just understand that. And you can't be handing them out. You can't be putting them on Facebook. They're yours now. And you're one of us. We're all on the same team. We're all rowing this boat in the same direction, right? And he slowly learned over that first year that city employees aren't that bad. The budget really isn't overcooked. He learned a lot. And I watched him go from being this angry, dissident potential council member, to being a champion for those same employees. So that's the background. When Steve stops on the side of the road, like he's trying to help at that point, they're all scared of him. They're like,
Oh, what if you
Yeah, they're like, and you know, because that had been his reputation. And he told me, he's like, here's how you're gonna fix this, here's how to fix it. And it went spectacularly wrong and really did a lot of damage to that truck. And they're not cheap, you know, and so some employees got written up. And so I got involved in this because it became a personnel matter. And there were lessons learned all around, right? And Steve was so, he was devastated that these guys got written up. I said, Steve, they had to get written up. And I was like, because while you should have done what you did, it's on them that they took your direction instead of their supervisor. They knew what they were supposed to be doing, and they didn't do it. They followed your direction because you're a council member. They were afraid not to, but they don't get to avoid the consequences of doing that. You know, they just don't get you. Because those are our rules. We have rules. And it's like, your rule is don't do that. Don't give direction to employees. Even if you're trying to be helpful, I was like, the thing to do when you pull over and you want to give direction, hey, call the city manager. Say, hey, I'm out here with you guys. Can you send the director of public works or the supervisor? We've got an issue here. It's like, you can be part of the solution. You can be helpful. But there's a way that you need to do it so those guys know that it's okay. Because you didn't protect them. You know, you exposed them and yourself by doing what you did. And so we all have roles. We all have roles that we have to respect. And when it comes to that interaction, even when we have the very best intentions. Do you have any perspective, as a former council member, do you have any perspective on that one?
Oh man, that's so broad though.
Yeah, it is. That's why I just stay out. Just don't give it.
It's tough because, yeah, you ran for a purpose and your purpose is to make things better and to help. You have to serve its heart, period. And it's difficult to see people struggling when you know you have something that could help, even if it's you're doing good, you know? I had a city manager that I would talk to a lot and ask a lot of questions. And when I would see the guys working on the, outside, maybe there was a water main break, or they were patching up a certain part of the road, I would stop, and I recall that I learned that I had to call the city manager and say, hey, I'm stopping, but I have questions. I want to learn. I want to learn why we're using the back truck when there was a water main break, because back trucks are supposed to be for something else, right? And so he would go out there, he'd be like, I have time, let me go. And so I would stand there with him. The supervisor would explain things to me. So when they did come to council and ask, can we have this huge dollar amount to buy a new back truck, I was all in, right? I was all in. I was ready to go to conference, ready to go talk to those vendors to see what they had to offer. And so when it did come to council, because our charter has a very low threshold of when the city manager would have to come back and ask for permission. It was only $25,000. You can't get anything for $25,000. So the council had to. So the council was approving a lot of expenditures, and anything over the 25 was like, oh, that's just too much. I'm like, here's what you do. We need that water to go from A to point B. This is how they're able to fix it. We have galvanized pipes, which are not helpful. And when summer comes around, I had to explain this again. He goes, there's another water main. I said, it happens in the summer. I said, it heats up. And he's like, what do you mean it heats up? Yes. And they burst. So I learned the hard way that it is very helpful if you are including your city manager, if you want to be out in the field and learn, or if you want to be in the finance office to learn why we're having to do an amendment and what that looks like, because it takes away that oversight that you're a council member and you have all this authority and you want to just dictate everything. And then it goes back to building that trust. So you get the buy-in of the employees to say she's actually not doing a check-in, like to make sure I'm doing my work. She's actually wanting to learn so she can make informed decisions.
So I'm gonna skip things then. I'm gonna skip ahead just a little bit. these were the priorities that we were given on the council's informed governance. Clear policy making by elected officials, professional administration by staff, fiscal responsibility and budget oversight, transparent public engagement, reliable delivery of municipal services. And I completely and wholeheartedly agree with those. The devil is always in the details and what that actually looks like. In our training initiative that we're developing, we had come up with these pillars of effective governance, which actually are very close to what you have listed: trust, communication, strategic alignment, and relationship building. And the rest of what we're going to talk about this morning, even when we get into public information and open meetings, are going to be elements of these things here, which I think align pretty closely with what your strategic planning and your goals have been with regard to your governance priorities. And I will tell you, in my experience, the one that is, there are two things that consistently I run into with the city struggle with on what you have listed here, okay? They struggle with what does it look like, what does transparent public engagement look like? And the reason why I say they struggle with that, and I know Marty's got some insight on this as well, is that just like I told you, you can ask 10 attorneys and you'll get 10 different legal opinions. If I ask 10 elected officials what this looks like, they're going to have different answers. Because you're always going to have an elected official that believes that the public should know everything, every single thing. And I'll be honest with you, if any of you have children, did you tell them everything? And I'm not comparing children to your public, but I'm just saying there was reasons why as a parent, those kids were not told everything. No one would scare the hell out of them if they knew everything about everything, right? Because they're not ready for that. And they don't have context. They don't have all the background. They don't have all the experiences that you have as a parent. With the public, it's similar in this, and with employees for that matter, it's similar in the sense that they're not going to have the context you have as an elected official. They're not going to have the background. And there is not enough time in this gentleman's day to educate your entire public on every aspect of governing a city the size of Kirby. And the complexity that goes into the finances and the equipment, as Manny alluded to, and managing personnel. Y'all are a corporation. You know, people overlook that. Cities are a corporate entity. You have all of the same problems as Coca-Cola, just on a scale down to your size. But it's a corporation with all the same issues, and folks don't think that.
Coca-Cola is a bigger warehouse.
They look at Kirby City Hall, and all they know is that's the people's house, right? Just like when we watched what happened on that date in January, wherever they do that, and there were, if you watch that transpire, I was in awe of watching an insurrection. I was like, I can't believe this happened. And people kept referring to it as the people's house. And we have a good friend who sent us a text and referenced City Hall the same way. But that's the people's house, and the people need to understand that. They need to remember that. And that is very true. The other side of that is they also need to understand it. So this right here, it's not that we don't want transparent public engagement, it's that you really have to manage and define what that looks like. It's just like the conversation with taking things into closed session. There must be ground rules. Everybody must respect them. Everybody must play by the same ground rules. And otherwise, that becomes a problem. The other one up here that is often a problem is professional administration by staff. Not that you don't get it, but that you don't invest in it enough. You know, cities don't, and just in my opinion, having been in-house and now working with cities, is that when the tendency can be that when you look at that budget, the things that councils often don't want to invest in is investing in, how do you get professional administration? You need professionals, right? You don't, and I'm not being ugly, but you know, the person who's done your nails for the last 10 years may not be the best choice for that city secretary position when it's open. Just because you know this person, you trust her, right? I work with a lot of small cities, and I'll be like, oh, what's your background? And they tell me, I'm like, really? Okay? And that's fine, and that's good. But here's step 2 then, is going to those elected officials and say, hey, here's a course right here that they offer where we can get her certified for this job. She can become a certified city secretary, or they can go to, they can take these courses through TML and get the certificate, because I don't care what she can. I think that's great, but then invest to make sure that staff is professional. Doesn't matter where they come from. It's where they're going and where the city's going, and cities often, this is where we fall short. We don't do the investment, so. And I am going to let Marisa take over on the pillars for a little bit, if she would like to.
Well, I'll just continue with what you're saying about investing in your employees as well. It's also investing in your council. Because you get new council members on, and what do? We say go to newly elected so you can get those required trainings that you need, patrolman training, just get that out of the way. But then there's so many opportunities, not me getting a plug for TML, maybe. But there are other opportunities where your council can continue to learn. There's leadership trainings as well. Do we all want to be the best leader? Yeah. Does it always happen? In our minds, probably yes. In our minds, but do we present that way? Maybe not. And it all depends. It all depends, right? So how do you work on yourself? Well, do it the same way you would want that employee to be successful. Because if they're successful, the city's going to be successful, and then what happens then? You're delivering services to residents, you have a happy community, and then you get to pat yourself on the back because you did a great job. These pillars that we talked about, y'all have been talking about it. I was looking at y'all sticky notes when we walked in. You have the one listed with hope here. You have your strategic goals. I'm kind of sad I didn't get to hear the conversations because I love to hear what everybody aspires to see, right? Every city has their own things that they're working on. They're not different. You just have a different group of people. It just may look a little different, and your budget's different, right? Everyone's going to have the same types of successes and failures. And what does that mean? Well, that means that we have to keep working, right? We're going to keep working no matter what. So we have to develop trust with our employees, as we mentioned, trust with our city manager, trust with the legal team, and also within ourselves as elected officials. That is going to be hard to do sometimes because sometimes we feel like we can't trust each other. I was telling Dan the other day, because we were talking about some other things, and I said, you know what the problem is? I said, the problem with anything being successful is the people. Okay? I'm a child psychologist by training, That's my full-time job before. I'm sorry. And so I explained to him, I said, I was in school districts and you have this behavior child and everyone's like, this kid. Well, what was the problem? The problem was the adults, right? And so what do? We point fingers at adults. So what do we do in our workplaces when things don't go well? We point fingers at adults. And sometimes we point fingers at ourselves, but mostly in the opposite direction, right? And so that really doesn't help with any trust. It also lessens the communication, right? I don't trust you, so I'm not going to communicate with you. I don't trust that what I say to you will stay here in this room, and you won't twist it around. And what does that do to our alignment to these goals that we had talked about? We can't really accomplish everything that we're wanting to do. So then it kind of comes back around to relationship building, right? So you're doing that right now. By being here, you're working on all of these effective pillars. So you can be a better government, so you can deliver the services that you need, and so each and every one of you can be the best version of yourself. Now, do we feel that there are some people here that should be here, in certain messages? Yes. That's going to happen. It's going to happen with meetings. It's going to happen in trainings. It's going to happen when we're out and about in the public setting and somebody is saying certain great things. This is a wonderful event. Thank you for doing all this. And you think, man, I wish so-and-so was here to hear this. It's okay. It's okay. There's going to be times where people are not going to be there, not doing as much as you do, and we can't get around it, right? But what can we control? We can control ourselves and our own actions. constituents and with the city employees. How can I make sure that I'm communicating in the best method? And if I need to CC the attorney and say, hey, pay attention to this email, I'm not just adding you on as a CC, I actually have a question. We can improve on those things as well. I will say the one thing that you would want to always remember is to remember your end goals. And what can I do to help us get to our goal? It may be a small little step of, I'm gonna make sure I say hello to somebody today, even if I don't get the same response back, right? My mom always said, you just go in there and kill them with kindness, it's fine, because she made me always think about Urkel. Y'all watch Super Urkel, where she would tell I'm wearing her down. That would make me like, I'm wearing her down. Transparency and citizen engagement. Ooh, yes, this is the fun one. So we have your public council meeting where people may participate, or maybe they're watching. You have your agendas and your minutes, your budget process. You do your budget workshops where you come forward and plan, so you can adopt. You have your boards, commissions, committees, and resident participation and feedback opportunities. Some cities do not have as much feedback from residents. Some cities have more than they can address at a time. I think, to me, it is more difficult when you don't get that feedback. Right? When you're talking about things, if it's a budget workshop or if it's any workshop period, and you're looking for that feedback and you're wanting to make improvements, how are we going to communicate that to the residents? I've seen some cities where, they send out messages. They have a messaging system where they'll send something out. Or they try to have town halls, and you get very little participation. When do people show up? They show up when they're mad, right? And so we try to make sure that we're communicating everything we can. Dan touched on something earlier about sharing information. If it's in your policy on social, you have a social media policy, it's important to make sure you're following your ethics with that as well. If you are going to share something, like say to Facebook, you have a separate Facebook page for your council page, and share factual information. Maybe you're going to want to talk about the meeting you just had. Here are the 3 things that we voted on. What does that mean? Well, that means after the budget starts, our new fiscal year, we're going to be able to work on these couple of things. If you talk about adding positions, why did we do that? We felt that there was a need for this, so we look forward to improving our services with this additional person. And so you try to just keep it very factual and not to include too many opinions, even though you might get some opinions in the comments. Just keep it to facts. It's very hard not to respond to comments. I always give the recommendation, try not to respond to any comments if you do post something. If you do respond in a comment, again, make sure it is factual information that comes from the meeting. Does it sound a little like difficult? It sounds a little difficult maybe.
Does everybody?
I'm probably preaching to the choir, right?
No, we just need everybody to hear it.
Is this being recorded?
Yeah. Well, it's being not recorded, but we're shared live on Facebook. I know, it would have been good. Somebody come. Yeah, they're recording.
It's on live, so at least
on
it
live.
ain't.
Well, I mean, we can come back and do it again.
Well, one of the things I would just add, and I think I was talking to Brian, I think we're gonna let everybody grab lunch and then go through open meetings and public information stuff while y'all are eating, if that's okay. But what I wanted to add to one of the points that Lisa was making is that, because we were talking about this yesterday, is that what I always encourage my councils to do is that always remember that even if you vote no, okay, when that item passes, it's yours, right? You can vote no, but if that item passes, it's yours, because all decisions are council decisions. And once it's yours, your responsibility is to make it successful to the greatest extent of your ability. It's not personal. It is not personal. And you always have to keep the focus on the issue, not the people. It's on the issue, not the people. And so if I'm a council member, and I watched this lady do this for several years, where she was the no, or she'd be the only one trying to get something passed, or she'd be the no on the item. But I watched as she continuously worked hard for whatever the outcome was. It didn't matter. She was on the wrong side of it. It's okay. Council made a decision. Then it needs to be successful, whatever that decision is. And because when you run for re-election, it's not about, I voted no, and it's not doesn't play well if you tried to oppose everything the council passed. What it should be is, look, I did not vote for them, but I did my best to try to make it successful. But it's not, right? It's not your fault, right? It's never your fault if you're on the wrong end of a vote. But it can be if you don't do everything as a council member to try to make it successful. If you just sit back and say, I'm gonna watch it burn, that is not what we're here to do. I'm sorry.
Well, no, don't stop them now. Wait a minute, preach.
It just goes back to the goals, right? What is our city manager trying to accomplish by bringing this forward to council, right? What is it that we all talked about in our retreats that we want to see for our city? So if that means that somebody else is bringing an item and I'm not agreeing to it, I won't agree. That's fine. I said, but I'm going to come into the city manager and say, where are we at with this?
Yeah.
Is it working? What's our budget look like?
I would appreciate that, yeah, that kind of thought process.
Yeah, and so it's not, and sometimes I can put, because you may put things on the agenda that has your name next to it, like I brought this forward, knowing that because it's a people problem sometimes where people just get a little butthurt and then they decide that I'm not going to agree for a little while. So then I wouldn't put things on the agenda under my name. I would ask the city manager. I come to the city manager, can you please put this? And he's like, no, man, this is no, not my initiative. I need this. I want this on there because we need to do A, B, and C, right? I know you don't do it for the accolades. You do it for because you are a public servant and have servant leadership at heart, right? And plus you get paid the big bucks. And I know at the end of the day, you go back to your goals. You go back to the hope that you have for your city. Does that mean that I need to not have things shown as my initiatives? Yeah. So when the public asks, well, what did you do? I supported these things. I made sure we were within budget. I was the one asking the questions. Just because it wasn't my item doesn't mean that I wasn't there grilling that city manager to ask him all the questions. But I'd let him know ahead of time, hey, be ready for this. I used to tell the finance director, hey, I'm going to ask where it's going to come from.
You didn't tell the attorney until I asked you to.
I wanted to make sure you were listening to this out. And that's okay. And that's okay, right? Because we're not there to showboat. We're there to make sure that as an entity, he stresses as the entity, serving the entity, as an entity, move forward together. And I'll leave you with that so y'all can grab lunch.
Yeah, and when y'all come back, I think we may have a couple more things on this, but most of this will be the Public Information Act and Open Meetings Act, to make sure that you get any questions answered on that, because usually there's a lot of questions on that. And then we'll cover gifts and one other thing, so.
The new update.
Oh, yeah, the update. Yeah. I could smell lunch, so I walked back and I was like, oh, we're keeping it for lunch.
I know.
Lunch is in the back office where we have drinks, snacks. Please help yourself. And
Keep going.
oh yeah. Well, yeah. Well, if y'all want to, just because I know I'm long-winded, so I'm trying to.
Tables back there anyway, so.
yeah, we'll bring. Yeah, you bring your food back.
What years were you on?
Oh goodness. Oh, this is risky then. So I grew up there too. I grew up in Markle, right? So that was
No, I think they're
We left you.
That's one, well, that's
to
one I stick with.
Now?